Hello, everyone. A very good morning to all of you. Just give me 30 more seconds. I see that some of you are still joining the session. So I'll just wait for 30 more seconds and then we shall begin with the session. All right. So let's begin with our session. A very good morning to all of you. From today onwards, we are going to begin with our sessions on science and technology. And over the next few classes, we'll discuss about most crucial topics with regards to science and tech. What kind of questions are to be expected? What kind of questions have come in the past? And what is the basic strategy to crack each and every question that comes from the subject of science and technology? So the first thing, and I'll tell you how exactly all the modules have been arranged. First and foremost, we'll start with a basic preparation plan and strategy that is required for science and technology. Once we are done with it, then after that, one by one, we'll start going into all the chapters that you have for this paper. So, for example, we'll begin with the first chapter of space technology first, and then we shall keep moving forward to all the other chapters that we have. So, in this manner, we'll keep going module by module, and we'll cover each and everything that we need from the perspective of your examination. All right. So, very first thing to begin with, we are going to start, and if you have any doubts, you know that you have the doubt section available, the chat section available. You can send in your doubts there. I'll keep trying to take your questions from time to time and resolve all your doubts. You might also know that you have that call feature where you can call also when you have any doubt. If you want to call and ask, you can do that. If you want to type in your doubts, you can do that. So as and when we keep going forward, if you have any kind of doubt with regards to anything, you're always welcome to ask those questions. So first and foremost, let's begin with a basic strategy for science and technology. Now, to understand the strategy, the very first thing that we need to understand is, of course, the syllabus. And let me show you what exactly the syllabus of the examination says about science and tech. Now look at the syllabus that you have on your screen: prelims and mains. When you look at the prelims level, you see that there is only one thing mentioned here, which is general science. Now, this does not really give any clue to what exactly is supposed to be asked in the examination. How general is this general science? No idea, right? So that's why it makes it a little difficult to even comprehend what to study, and more importantly, what not to study. So fine, let us hold for now. I've also added this segment of current affairs because we know that current affairs plays a major role in prelims, and specifically for a topic like science and technology, we see that current affairs does play a very, very important role. So that's why the prelim syllabus basically does not give you any hint about the topics or the chapters and everything that you need to study for this examination. Let's look at the main syllabus. And when you look at the main syllabus, this is where you for the first time get a hint of what is supposed to be done for this exam. So there are 3 points that you can see here, right? The first point is science and technology developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. Correct? So we are talking about the developments and their applications, developments of science and technology and their applications in everyday life. Correct? Then, but still no topic mentioned, right? So the next topic, the next point says achievement of Indians in science and technology, indigenization of technology, and developing new technology, right? So achievement of Indians, indigenization of technology, and developing new technology. So what do we mean? And let me just break down this particular phrase that we have here: achievement of Indians in science and technology. Now, one thing that we must not confuse this with is that it's not that they are talking about scientists. It's not that you have to read the biography of scientists and the question will be asked on the biography of the scientists. They will not do that. They have not done it yet. Why so? Because if they had to ask biography of somebody or anything related to somebody's biography, it's not science, it's history, right? So it's not a history paper that they'll ask you about a specific scientist and what did the scientist do and where did the scientist study and what were the prizes given to the scientist. Not required. Achievement of Indians, meaning whatever India has achieved as a country. So when you look at space technology, when you look at biotechnology, nuclear technology, defense technology, all these areas where India has been doing very well over the past 30, 40 odd years, these are the things that we have to actually study when it comes to thinking about achievement of Indians in science and technology. Secondly, indigenization of technology, right? So achievement of Indians, when we say achievement of Indians, the meaning of achievement of Indians is science in India. In a manner, you can say this is science in India. Then second thing is indigenization of technology. What do we mean by indigenization? Indigenization is when you are in a manner, I mean, I'll just oversimplify the things. We basically mean localization. How so? What exactly do we mean by localization? Now, see, when it comes to technology, it's not that every technology, every piece of technology that we are using in our lives is something that India has prepared or India invented or India discovered. No, a lot of inventions and discoveries have happened all across the world. But then we use it and we also customize it according to the requirements and the needs of the country. For example, let's say any defense deal happens, right? Any defense deal happens. So whenever a defense deal happens, what we know is that we probably are buying a technology, we probably are having a joint venture with some other country and trying to develop a technology, but then we customize it according to our requirements. Take Rafale for example. We bought Rafale from France. Now, when Rafale was being designed in France, they never thought of whether Rafale will be able to fly in Ladakh or not, whether it will be able to fly in Kashmir or not, whether it will be able to fly in Rajasthan or not. But we probably will need these fighter aircrafts in all these areas. And just think about the geography of these areas. They're completely different from one another, right? Ladakh, a cold desert, Thar, Rajasthan, hot desert, and then Kashmir, which is a mountainous area. So three completely different geographies, and that's why they come with different requirements. So that's why when Rafale comes to India, it also comes with certain modifications in a manner that they'll be able to adjust themselves according to the requirements of these areas. All right. So this is how technology works, and this is how indigenization of technology works. Then after that, developing new technology. Of course, any new technology is always a very, very important topic for your examination. Any new development happening anywhere in the world which is going to have a significant impact on human life will definitely be a part of your paper. So that's why new technology becomes very, very crucial. Take artificial intelligence and look at what artificial intelligence has been doing over the past couple of years. We'll go into the details of what artificial intelligence is when we go to that chapter, but overall this is what the thing is. Now, the third point, probably the most important point, because this is for the first time where you see all the topics noted down, right? What are the topics? Awareness in the fields of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and issues related to intellectual property rights. So, the third point of the main syllabus, it defines for you what you have to expect in the paper, not only in the mains examination, but even this overflows in your prelims examination. The general science, so to say, that UPSC has been asking, if you look at the past 10 years of papers or 15 years of papers, you'll understand that a lot of science that they are asking is the science behind anything around us, is the science behind any new development happening in the world. And we'll take a lot of examples when we go to specific chapters. You'll understand what kind of questions have been coming, and based on that you also understand what is to be done for this examination. All right. So this is what the syllabus is, and this is the breakdown. And these all topics, they become important for us. Now, the fact also is that this syllabus has not changed for last 10 years. 2013 was the last time when they had changed the syllabus. Since then, there hasn't been any change, although there has been so much change in technology all across the world. So that's why, for example, let's say you might simply say that, okay, there's no artificial intelligence mentioned in the paper or mentioned in the syllabus. So does it mean that a question on artificial intelligence will not come? The answer is no, it will come. Why? In the name of current affairs. Anything that the syllabus does not say, current affairs covers it. So in the name of current affairs, they can ask anything that they want. So that's why all these newer developments that have happened over the past few years, they all will be covered through current affairs. So that's why these kind of topics, although not mentioned in the syllabus, still become a part of the syllabus. So let's look at the topics. Let's look at what exactly are we going to discuss as a part of our curriculum. So these are the chapters, these are the topics as you see here. First is space. Space technology is one of the most important topics, and every year, without fail, you'll see that questions do come from space technology, and that's why it becomes one of the most crucial topics for your paper. Not only from the perspective of science and technology, but from the perspective of your prelims and mains, because this is one chapter from where you have to think that one question will definitely come from here. So, space technology, energy. Energy as a topic of late has become very, very crucial. We see that a lot of questions have been coming from energy. And of course, you have seen the kind of shift that the world has taken when it comes to its energy requirements. The entire world has been trying to shift away from coal and petroleum and try to get solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen as a fuel. All these are being incorporated into the setup. So that's why energy also as a topic becomes very, very crucial. And these two topics for us also will be the most crucial topics, all right, and the biggest of the chapters. All the other chapters, they will be not as big as the first two chapters are. So probably today the entire day will be about space technology and energy, and it will overflow into next Saturday as well. So these are two very, very big topics, very, very big chapters. And then after that we have biotechnology, nanotechnology. These are topics one again from where we almost every year we do see that one question comes from here. Robotics and artificial intelligence. Of late, artificial intelligence has become very crucial. So we have to expect questions from here. IT and communication, another topic which has become more important in the past few years with the advent of digital communication and the various different forms of wireless communication that we have been using in our lives, whether it is Wi-Fi, whether it is Bluetooth or 5G now. All these things, they make this chapter very, very crucial. Then we'll have a discussion on the disease chapter and we'll discuss some of the things there. Intellectual property rights and defense. Now also understand one thing, from the perspective of the examination, what kind of topics are expected where. So for example, when it comes to space technology and energy, these are chapters that I would say are important from both the perspective of your prelims and mains examination. These are two topics from where every year we would expect one question to come both in prelims and mains, at least one, if not more. All right. Then biotechnology, again a chapter I would say which is important from both perspective of prelims and mains. Then coming to nanotechnology, I would say primarily this is prelims based topic. All the questions have come in the past. You can't deny that questions would not come in the mains examination. But primarily, I would say that these are topics which are more important for prelims examination. Then intellectual property rights. When it comes to intellectual property rights, this is a topic which I would say that primarily it is more important for your mains examination than prelims examination, because this is a lot of discussion oriented topic. So that's why there are higher chances that you get a question in the mains exam rather than in the prelims examination. And then coming to these two topics of defense and disease, these are two topics which I would say that they are more of current affairs based. All right. These are two topics from where questions which are asked, you'll often find that these are current affairs based questions. So the static areas in these two topics, they do not matter as much as the areas of current affairs. Compared to all the other topics, these are two topics where I would say that the focus should primarily be of everything that you see in the news, whether related to disease or whether related to defense. So these are the topics that we are going to cover in our paper, in our discussion. Now, Before we move further, also let's have a look at a trend analysis of what kind of questions have been coming, or how many questions rather have been coming at prelims and at mains level. So when you look at the prelims level, what you see is that if we take last 10 years of paper, starting 2014 coming up to 2023, you'll see that on an average at least 12 questions have been coming. This year 2023 we again saw that there were 12 questions from science and technology, and then after that there have been some years where 14 to 16 questions also have come from the paper. Now this is something that I want you to understand very well, that this is something that makes science and technology, especially for prelims, very very crucial, because even with 12 questions we are talking about a total of 24 marks. We are talking about a total of 24 marks, and these are 24 marks where you don't need to spend a lot of time to get these 24 times, no, 24 marks. I have nothing against any other subject, and I don't, that's why I don't want to make comparisons. But when you look at some of the other subjects and the kind of syllabus that you have to cover to get maybe a similar number of questions, maybe a couple of more, the time that you're spending is probably three times of what you're going to study, what you're going to spend for studying science and technology. So from that perspective, especially in the prelims examination, science and technology plays a very very important role. Unfortunately, what happens is that this is also a topic which is one of the most uncomfortable topics for a lot of you, and I'll discuss that as well, that what happens and why that happens, I'll discuss that. But we see that many a times this is a subject which is not very easy for a lot of students, and that is why a very wrong strategy sometimes is also given by a lot of people who are related to the preparation of science, preparation of civil services, that you'll be told that okay fine, there are 8 to 10 questions that come, you don't read science and technology, you go and uh, prepare better for all the other subjects that you have, and you'll be able to cover whatever you're losing in science and technology. That's completely wrong. First of all, see, understand 2 points. Firstly, there's no guarantee how many questions you get, right? There's no guarantee how many questions you are going to miss if you are not studying a particular subject. Forget about this being just science and technology, any subject. And we have seen a history of how UPSC can surprise you with something new all the time. This year's papers also, for those of you who have seen the paper, you might have seen that there was a new structure of question that was brought in. Although last year also it was there, but last year it was not as much problematic as it has been this year, or it because the numbers were lower. This time the numbers have been higher. There have been years when one subject has been picked and a lot of questions have been asked from there. You just go back and see 2013 and 2014 papers, you'll find that almost one third of your paper was just environment and ecology, environment and environmental geography, you can say. Almost 30 questions out of 100. So if somebody, let's say, in 2013 or 14 would have advised you, fine, look at 2012 paper, hardly 10 questions have come from environment, you don't need to read environment that much. What happens in 2013 or 14? You can't qualify. Same goes for art and culture. Just look at two papers of art and culture, I think 2014 and 15. You'll see that a decent number of questions, more than 10 questions, came just from art and culture. After that, never happened again. After that, it never so happened that so many questions were asked, but it just made art and culture a subject which is now taught different from ancient and medieval history. So that's why you can't predict, first of all. And secondly, what I personally believe, of course I'm also the faculty for science and technology, but I personally believe that these are 20 to 30 easy marks that you can score. It's because you are not going to give a lot of time to it, and still you are able to catch a decent number of questions in the paper. So that's why it's not advisable for whoever advises such, that a paper like this be left, especially when it comes to prelims examination. In the mains examination, the role is restricted. That, for example, when you look at the last 10 papers, you'll see that almost on an average 3 to 4 questions have been coming. Three to four questions would mean that almost 50 marks is being asked from here, almost 50 marks. But these are 50 easy marks. All right. We'll also go through the past papers of science and technology in the mains examination. So that's why you'll and we'll go through the papers. You'll see that these questions are very easy, they are very static in nature, and whatever we have discussed in the classroom, you'll see that most of those questions that have come in the past, they can be answered from there. So questions have been very easy at mains level, and in the prelims, at the prelims level, you do not need to spend a lot of time. So when typically somebody looks at the return on investment from this particular subject, it's high. It's probably higher than many other subjects that you're learning. So you have to strategize well, and that's why I take these 5 minutes all the time to ensure that the students also understand the importance of this subject, uh, and how crucial it can become in making or breaking somebody's preparation or somebody's chances of getting through. So so that's why these are the paper, this is the analysis of the past papers, what we have seen over the last 10 years. Now one more thing about what to study and how to study. So this is where the problem sometimes begin for the students when it comes to science and technology, because in most of the other subjects you have a very static part, and you would have a standard book that you refer to plus the lectures, and you're done. In most of the cases that's the case. Here, first of all, there is no book that can help. So even if there are books in the market, they can't really help you as much as the lectures would help or current affairs would help. So that's why identification of topics is very, very important. Now, as I believe most of you are preparing, I'm just launching a poll for you. I just want to understand how many of you are preparing for 2024 to 25 or beyond. Right? And I'll just give you three options. A is 24, B is 25, and C is beyond 25. That is 2025. 2024, 2025, beyond 2025. I'm just starting a poll. I just want to understand from your perspective. Nothing is a wrong or a right answer, just that we have an option always here. Just mark your answers, please, and then let's have a discussion on it. Hmm. Oh, so almost 70% of you are preparing for 2024, and rest 30% of you are beyond 2024. All right. Now, this is where it becomes very crucial for you to understand what needs to be done when it comes to science and technology. Because what happens, let's say if you're reading the Hindu, all right, so you know that on Sundays there is one particular page which is completely dedicated to the study of science and technology. All the topics of science and technology are there in that particular paper. All right. But even if there are 10 articles on that one page, not more than two articles on an average are actually important for the paper. Understand when a topic becomes important, or how a topic becomes important in most of the cases. This is where the first and the second point, they become very crucial. Major scientific breakthrough and running stories in the field of science and technology, and the static areas of the syllabus related to this current affairs. So what they do is, they would not ask you the facts of current affairs. It's a science paper. Science means concepts. Science means understanding what you're reading. So when they ask you a question, the question is not really based on the fact of the current affairs that you often see in the newspaper columns, but rather the concept behind it. So if you have understood what you are reading, becomes easy for you. And all the static areas, all the backgrounds of that particular topic becomes crucial. Let me just give you one example. And this is something that we'll discuss later as well. This is about gravitational waves. Heard of gravitational waves? Even if you have not heard, don't worry, we'll have a discussion on it anyway. Now, gravitational waves as a topic. Why I want to give you this example? The discovery of gravitational waves, or rather, you can say prediction. prediction of gravitational waves happened in almost 1915 by yours truly, Albert Einstein. He was the one who had predicted the presence of gravitational waves. It took us almost 100 more years to finally detect a gravitational wave. All right. And then a Nobel Prize was also given for the detection of gravitational wave. Until the time the discovery happened and the Nobel Prize was given for gravitational waves, it remained an important area of research for the scientists for the last 100 odd years. Do you know how many questions were asked by UPSC in prelims or mains examination from gravitational waves until the point the Nobel Prize was given? The answer is zero. No questions were asked. As soon as the Nobel Prize was given, became a very, very important topic. Everyone, everywhere, all across the world discussing it. What happens next? In the last 10 odd years, there have been at least three questions which have come directly from the concept of gravitational waves. What happened? It became a breakthrough. It became a breakthrough. As soon as it became a breakthrough, this is where all of a sudden we see that a lot of people also became interested in this particular uh, concept. So this is what happens. So when you look at any news article, just think about one thing: is it important for science all across the world, or at least is it important breakthrough for India? If it's an important news or a breakthrough for India, or it is very, very important for the scientific world, it's an important topic, and then you can expect a question to come from here. Most of the times, one of the hints that you can get that okay, this is an important topic, is if it's a repeated topic, meaning that it's an article or it's a concept which you did not find in the newspapers only once, but rather multiple number of times. Then in that case, you can take it for granted that this is an important topic and can be important for your examination. So this is how you always will have to think about what can be important and what can't be, so that you also have a limited number of topics and you just do not go overboard with each and every topic that you see and start mugging up each and everything that you come across. So that's why I want you to understand that this is how, first of all, you have to understand what a breakthrough is, and then only, or something which is a major running story in the field of science all across the world perhaps, or maybe at least from Indian perspective, then only it would be an important topic. Then government programs and initiatives again becomes very, very crucial, not only from science perspective, but every ministry, whatever they are doing, always will be important. And then consumer oriented technology. Now what we have seen over the past few years is that there have been a lot of questions which are related to technology that we use. There has been a question on wearable technology like smartwatches, etc. There has been a question on virtual reality and augmented reality. There has been a question on OLED. There has been a question on 3G and 4G. And right now, probably one of the most important topics would be 5G. Next year, next to next year, mains examination, prelims examination, 5G will be perhaps one of the most important topics. So we have seen that all these are what? All these are technologies which are used by people across. It's not only something that governments would use, but rather a common person would use. So that's why these kind of consumer oriented technologies, something that is very widely has a presence all across the world, always becomes very, very important. Right. So next, lastly, the sources. That what are the sources that we need to follow when it comes to science and technology? The very first thing, the newspapers. Either if you are reading the Hindu, good enough, read the Hindu. If not, one more newspaper that is very crucial, very important, could be the Indian Express. I'm not saying that you need to read the both. I'm saying that at least one of the two. If you can follow just at least one of the two, it's more than important for your preparation. They cover most of the important topics which have a relevance, which could have a relevance from examination perspective. Then PIB. What is PIB? Anyone first? If you could tell me first, what is PIB? Anyone who knows the answer? I'm sure many of you do. Yes. Press Information Bureau. Yeah, government posts things. Correct. So PIB is Press Information Bureau. And when you go to the website of PIB, you would find that things are arranged there ministry wise and date wise. So whatever ministry news you want to study, you can just uh, from the drop down menu you can select the ministry, you can select the month, date, or even the year if you want, and they would give you all the important announcements, all the new advancements that have happened, and everything that any ministry has said or any ministry is doing. So that's why press information bureau becomes very very crucial, because anything that India is doing or the government of India is doing, it would be published first and foremost in the PIB. So that's why PIB becomes important. Now PIB you can also follow from your Byju's exam prep app. When you go to the Byju's exam prep app, you'll see that on the home page itself, you'll see that PIB summary or PIB analysis on a daily basis is being posted there. So if you are not going to the website and reading from there, you can at least go to the Byju's exam prep app and read the PIB analysis or PIB summary from there. But please keep doing it on a very regular basis. You'll find that it will really 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 help you in both your prelims and mains examination, not only in science and technology but in all the other subjects as well. So that's why PIB, I would say, is a very crucial source. Then Science Reporter and Down to Earth. Now these two magazines, although they are relevant from the perspective of the examination, sometimes they can be very technical, especially when it comes to Science Reporter magazine. Science Reporter magazine can be very technical, so that's why it's not easy to read all the articles that are there. Follow the webinars. In the webinars that we are conducting for you on a weekly basis, we are covering all the important topics from these two magazines, so just keep following it. Same actually goes for Yojana and Kurukshetra as well. That Yojana and Kurukshetra perspective also, all the important topics relevant from examination perspective, we are covering in the webinars, and this is also being done on a weekly and monthly basis. So please make sure that you are following all the webinars for the summary of all these things. And then lastly, the NCRTs. Now, from science perspective, whether the NCRT is important first of all, and if it is important, how much importance does NCRTs have? Now, this is where I have another question for you, and I'm launching a poll for you. How many of you here are from science background, whether science, engineering, medical, core sciences? How many of you are from commerce background, and how many of you are here from the arts background? I'm just launching a poll from you. I just want to understand what background you belong to. Please mark your answers. Hmm. So 56% of you are from science background, 25% of you from commerce, and 19% of you from arts background. Now, why I ask this question is because this question is irrelevant. It doesn't really matter from what background you are, because this is also what I have seen, especially, I mean, people who come from non-science background. There is a feeling that science is very difficult, and many a times the science background students are overconfident, thinking that I am from science background, so I can do science. But unfortunately, the kind of science that we are looking at is very different here. It's not related to your graduation, it's not related to your post graduation. So whether you have a background or not, as long as you have completed your class 10th, you have passed your class 10th board examination, all of you are going to be in the same boat. How does the thing differ? Because many of you, it for many of you it might have been 6 to 8 years since probably you last studied science. So that becomes one of the challenges for many of you. But let's take it in this manner, that it doesn't really matter what background you belong to. What matters is how you follow the classes, whether you are able to grasp the concepts that I'm going to deal with. If you have any doubts, you always have an option to ask me whatever you want. But make sure that you study well, make sure that you concentrate well, during the course of this class, and that will be enough for you. And that's why, and I'm telling you that whether you are from science or non-science background doesn't really matter, because even if you are from science background, and even if you, let's say, have done your graduation in science, the questions are not going to come from there. And even if you have done a graduation in science, you might have done only one part. Others are completely different for you. For example, let's say if you are an engineer, maybe a mechanical engineer, so you don't know about space technology, you don't know about biotechnology, so there are a lot of topics which you have no idea about, and you, that's why you have not studied anything. Similarly, from you are from medical background, you don't have any knowledge about what is nanotechnology, what is space technology and all that, what is nuclear technology, you'll have no idea. So that's why uh, I want that the science student should not be overconfident, and the non-science student should not be underconfident about what exactly, whether it's easy or difficult. Forget about all these notions about a subject. Come with a clean mind, study all the things that we are going to discuss here, and you'll find that things are not that difficult as they are portrayed to be. All right. So this is, so when it comes to NCRTs, what I would suggest is that class 6 to 8th NCRTs, class 6 to 8th NCRT science can be used to brush up your concepts. All right. Even if you don't go to class 9th and 10th NCRTs, still would not matter a lot. Even if you do, even if you want, there are only certain chapters. I would just write the names of those chapters. Just go through those chapters, even if you are going to class 9th and 10th. So, one chapter, the chapter on gravitation, then another chapter on force and laws of motion, then one chapter which is structure of atom, then one from biology which is fundamental unit of life, which is about the cellular structure in an organism, fundamental unit of life. And then there are a couple of chapters related to the human body, like what is the digestive system, what is respiratory system, what is circulatory system, and all that. You can go through it, although questions have not come from you. Even if you look at last 15 years of question papers, questions have not come from here. But still, as a basic knowledge, these are the things that should be covered. So my suggestion although would be, even if you cover just class 6 to 8th NCRTs, they would cover most of the topics, and you would be able to brush up your science, because it might have been a long time for very many of you to the last time when you had read science. And even if you have, the problem is that the way we read science in school is very different. I'll show you one example. Okay, if I ask you a question and I'll give you four options for it. If I ask you, how many organs do we have? How many organs in the human body? 1 to 50, 51 to 100, between 101 to 150, or more than 150? A, B, C, or D? I'm launching the poll for you. I want to see whether you know the answer to it or not. Please mark your answers quickly. Okay, Soumya, you know the answer. Great. Yes, Himanshu, your approximation is also almost correct. So this is where the problem lies. See, 31% of you have marked A, 39% of you have marked B, 19% of you have marked C, and 11% of you have marked D. So understand this. Why I was focusing on the fact that the kind of science that we are looking at will be different. Organ. Organ is a word I'm very sure that all of you have heard of. That there is something called as an organ in our body. What is an organ? Probably you have limited idea about. This is where the problem is, that I'm sure that somewhere in science you have mucked up the definition of an organ, but our focus never is on understanding the concepts at the school level. In many of the cases, I'm not generalizing it for everyone, but unfortunately this has been the state, that your teachers also know what kind of questions will come. They also tell you, they have given you the notes, you just mug up the notes uh, of everything that has been given to you. You just go and write the same things in the paper, you go to get a good marks, right? So the problem is that we are not really subjected to this kind of learning where you're trying to grasp a concept, we are trying to learn something. So that becomes one of the challenges, that why the answers are so varied. For all the ones of you who marked B is correct, right now we have almost 78 organs. There are a couple of organs which are in contention, where there are two tissues or set of tissues that have been discovered, which they might say that this is also an organ. So the number goes up to 80, 81, etc. So approximately around 80 is where we are. So understand why the number is 80, why not more than 150, or why not less than 50. What is an organ? Organ is nothing but a set of tissues which perform a basic task in the body. All right. So tissues will come together, they will make an organ, and the organ has to perform a basic function in the body. For example, heart is an organ, brain is an organ. These all will be called as an organ because these are set of tissues which are doing a particular function for the human body. So there are almost 80 organs that we have right now in the body. So understand the problem, understand, I mean, this of course is not a question that would ever come in your paper, but I just wanted you to understand that why I want you to go back to class 6th and only up to class 6 to class 8. Reading these NCRTs will not even take a lot of time. I mean, class 6th NCRT, for example, can be completed in 2 to 3 hours if you sit for it, right? So it's not that you will take a lot of effort in understanding what's written there, but I want you to revisit all these concepts once. So that's why I said class 6 to 8 overall. So that's why when it comes to the sources, and let me just simplify everything for you now. Simple source would be follow the class, everything that we are doing in the classroom, plus the next 1 year of current affairs. For those of you who are preparing for 2024, I would say that the months starting from June up to next April, they become important for you. And for those of you who are beyond 2024 preparation, right now perhaps current affairs is not very important for you. So only the things which are very, very major, only those topics will be important for you for now. But you will start focusing a lot more next year. All right. So that is how you have to do. So otherwise, source wise, I would just say follow the class. In the PPTs, there is enough information, my annotated PPTs, plus the additional reading material. That's it, plus current affairs of the next 1 year of your preparation. This is what you need to follow, and forget about everything else, and don't worry about what source to follow and what book to follow and all that. So this is a basic of your preparation. I wanted to take some time here because I wanted to be very clear in your minds about the preparation of this subject. Before moving on to the first chapter, I want to take 5 minutes. If you have any doubts, if you want to ask anything, please post your questions. And after that, we will move forward with the first chapter. What is AI? What about AI? AI, we will discuss AI as a chapter. Robotics and AI, both the chapters will be discussing, but next weekend. Bilateral exercise between countries, navy, armies, these come under science and technology. Not exactly, although defense is a part of science and technology, but navy exercises are purely current affairs topics. So, as a part of current affairs, they have to be handled. Can I make for can I make notes for prelim science and technology? I mean, if you are talking about the class, I would say that focus on the annotations, focus on the PPTs. Already a lot of information I've included in the PPTs itself, so that it helps you in understanding and revising well. And any extra information also that is required, I'll keep writing from time to time. If you want to make running notes, if you have a habit of making a running note, fine, you can please do that. It just depends on how you are, uh, you always do your preparation, whatever be your process, follow that process, no worries. What are the months that we need to focus for current affairs overall? Overall, I would say that, see, sincerely, I would say that 15 months of time are more than enough. All right. Maximum of 15 months, depending on the time that you have. Minimum of 9 months. Minimum of 9 months. The idea why 9 months? Because uh, last 9 months are after the mains examination. For example, this year's mains exam, after this year's mains examination, you'll have almost 9 months of time before the next prelims. So whatever important topics were there, they either have been asked in the prelims or they have been asked in the mains. So going from that perspective, we generally see a trend that last 9 months is where most of the questions are asked from. But to be on a safer side, I would say 1 year and 3 months is enough. Beyond that, somebody should not read. I mean, it's shouldn't one should not go and read 2 years or 3 years of current affairs. That does not really help. It's easy to forget also if you read so much. Current affairs to be followed. See, for current affairs, some of the key important current affairs we'll keep discussing while the classes go on. All right, with the class also, some of the important developments across the world from those topics, I'll keep discussing them. Plus, next 1 year, because of course the examination for you is 1 year from now. So whatever current affairs we keep doing, let's say through the daily Hindu analysis or through the webinars, at least go through the webinar notes or the monthly magazines where we are covering each and everything. All right. So just follow that current affairs. And how many, what is the time period? I've already mentioned here. Should we read the magazines Yojana and Kurukshetra along with the webinars? Reading the magazines would not be required. Only the topics that we are covering, just listen to those topics should be enough for you. Or at the most, only those articles, just you can go back and just read that article after listening to the lecture. That should be enough, but don't read it from cover to cover. It's not that every topic in Yojana or every topic in Kurukshetra are important. Yojana still has a higher precedence here, I would say. Kurukshetra has to be read very, very selectively. The books given by Jews, I mean, as I told you, that those are for additional information. Even if you don't read them, doesn't matter at all. That's why I'm saying just keep focusing on whatever we are doing in the classroom and add current affairs to it. That's it. Think tanks like ORF and IDSA are also helpful. They are of course very helpful, but more from perspective of international relations, not so much from the perspective of science and technology. How to make notes for current affairs? See, current affairs, what I would say is that first and foremost, always try to make current affairs notes topic wise as much as possible for you, not only for science, any other topic. Because what happens is, understand the concept behind making a subject wise or a topic wise notes. Why do you make notes? Okay, this is a question for everyone. Why do you make notes? Why is it required that somebody makes a note? Okay, to revise easily, easy revision, two exactly similar answers. Future reference to revise, yes. Quick revision, easy revision, yes. So all of you are correct here. But I would say something. You make notes for yourself, right? You make notes so that it will help you. So you are doing a favor to yourself so that the things don't become cumbersome for you 8 months from now. Because just understand this, that one by one by one you'll keep on adding new subjects to your preparation. So it becomes almost impossible that you, let's say next April, you again sit back and you start opening all the books and start opening all the notes and every PPT and every additional reading material. Won't be possible for you to go through each and every one of these things. So this is where you make notes. You make notes so that you can make your job easy, as many of you have mentioned, to make the revision easy, to make this process easier for you. So that's why understand why notes are being made. Now coming to current affairs notes. So when you make notes for current affairs, why I'm saying it should be topic wise, because when you read anything, you should get a holistic background and every information related to that topic at one place. Many a times what happens is that when you make a date wise notes or a month wise notes, there is a disconnect between what you are reading in the static part and what you are reading in the dynamic part. You have to club those two things together, and that's why maybe use sheets, maybe uh, if you are, let's say, when you are using a notebook to make your notes, at the end of every chapter just leave out some pages, 4 5 pages or whatever you can, so that all the current affairs that you come across over the next 1 year, you can mention all that at the end of that chapter itself. Or if you are making the notes in form of pages and compiling them in a file or something, then in that case you can keep making notes, and you can uh, shift in the pages whenever you have made notes for any current affairs. But long story short, topic wise, always make the notes topic wise. All right, fine. So I think these were the questions. Let's move on to our first chapter. The first chapter is space technology. Now, at the beginning of every chapter, I'll tell you also the importance of the chapters, and so that you also have a context of what to expect. First chapter being space technology. I would say probably the most important topic that we are going to discuss in the entire set of science and technology, both from prelims perspective as well as from mains perspective. The most important topic, biggest chapter as well. It will take a lot of time to cover this one chapter. At the same time, some of the concepts, especially at the first in the first half of our discussion, can be a little difficult as well. All right, so there are some concepts that can be little technical in nature. If there is any problem that you have while we discuss those areas, you will always have the option. You can send in your doubts and we'll have a discussion on it. But the first 1 hour or so, I would say, are probably the most important ones. Somebody also asked for the break timings. The break timings, the lunch break, we would take somewhere between 1 to 1:30. From there on, 1 hour from there, and then after that, before that also, they will take one very small break, and then after that, two small breaks will take post lunch. uh, Maybe you can say after every 1.5 to 2 hours we'll take one small break, and then there will be one major break that we will have at the time of your lunch. All right, so let's begin. Space technology. Now, space technology, basically, this chapter is divided into two segments. The first segment is of space science, and the second segment is of space technology. So when I say space science, we'll discuss about the universe, we'll discuss about various different concepts related to the universe, celestial bodies, and all these things we'll discuss in the first part. The second part will be space technology, where we'll discuss about satellites, we'll discuss about ISRO, we'll discuss about how do we launch a satellite, why do we launch a satellite, what are the applications of the satellites, what are the different types of launchers that we have, what is PSLV, what is GSLV. All these things will be the second part of our discussion, space technology. All right, so the first topic will be space science, and to start with, the universe. Now, the very first thing when we start understanding what the universe is, this is one of the best ways to define what is universe. Because if, let's say, without showing the definition, if I ask you what is universe for you, you can think of an answer, but it's very difficult for you to define something which is undefinable, right? I'm going a little philosophical way, but this is what it is, that it becomes very difficult to even think of what the universe is, because we know that everything that we see around, everything that we don't even see, everything is a part of the universe, right? So that's why one of the best ways to define the universe is everything that exists, everything that has existed, and everything that will exist is a part of the universe. Now, I understand, fine, everything that exists is a part of the universe, but why are we saying everything that has existed and everything that will exist is also a part of the universe? Why are we talking about the past and the future? Why not only stop at everything that exists as a part of universe? Understand this. And I'm sure that all of you have heard of this. There is something called as law of conservation of energy. Heard of it? What do we mean? What's the meaning? Law of conservation of energy. What does it say? Anyone? Quickly. Yes. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Perfectly correct. It can only be converted from one form to another. Perfect. So when we say law of conservation of energy, what we are saying is that energy is a form which you cannot create or destroy. It can only be shifted from one form to another, right? So in this case, now understand this. Why are we saying something that existed and will exist is also a part of the universe? Because there's a constant change that will keep on happening. Suppose there is a new star that is formed today, some billions of light years away from us. Do you see that star as soon as it is formed? The answer is no. Right? The answer is no. When will you see that star? When the light from the star has been able to reach the earth. Whenever that light reaches the earth, this is when you see that star. Until then, that star doesn't exist for you. So that star will exist for you. Then the same star will also die, and when the star dies it just will again have a different form. Maybe it converts into a black hole, maybe it converts into a white dwarf, maybe just explodes and just distributes itself as a form of energy. So again it changed form, right? So today it was a star, tomorrow it is a black hole. Possible, correct? So in this manner, everything that has existed, does exist, and will exist, all of these things are the part of our universe. So that's why we say that this is law of conservation of energy. Now, Somen, you have raised a valid question. This is only valid for a closed or an isolated system, but correct. We have the leverage that we can identify and set up the system. That you can define that this is the system for you. So for us, when we say this, that law of conservation of energy works here, we have defined the universe as a system, and we have not given any boundaries to it. So we still can uh, assume it to be a closed system, and still that's why it will be a valid theory, that when we can say that everything of the past, future, and the present is a part of the universe. But definition is least of our problems. The problems start when we start understanding the composition of the universe. So when we look at the composition of the universe, we see that there are three basic components of the universe: dark energy, dark matter, and the rest. Dark energy, dark matter, and the rest. So, what is dark energy? What is dark matter? We'll hold on to it for now. Let's first see what do we mean by the rest. Now, dark energy, as you see here, almost 70%. Exact numbers we say that 68% of the universe is dark energy. 27% almost is dark matter, and then the rest 5% is the rest that we are talking about. Now, what is the composition of this rest? 4% of this rest, as you can see here, 4% of the rest is just free hydrogen and helium, meaning all the hydrogen and helium that you have in this entire universe is 4% of the entire universe, a very significant number. Then in the last 1%, 0.5% are all the stars in the universe. All right, all the stars in the universe, every billions and billions and billions of stars that we have in the universe, every star combined, it's just 0.5% of the universe. How much of this 0.5% do you see? Maybe 10, 20, 30, depending on where you live. If you're living in a bigger city or a tier 1 or a metro city, probably 10. If you're living somewhere in the rural areas or at least in an isolated area, perhaps 50 to 100. If you're living in Ladakh, maybe more than hundreds. But even that is nothing compared to the billions and billions of stars that we have in this entire universe. So that is just 0.5% of the universe. Then after that, 0.3% are neutrinos. Now let's try to understand what we mean by a neutrino. So neutrino, if you have to simply understand how we define neutrino, we see that we would say that these are chargeless and almost massless bodies or almost massless particles, which are found all across the universe, everywhere in the universe. I mean, right now, for example, wherever you are, there would be neutrinos around you, but they are very, very small. They have very negligible size, they have negligible mass, and they have no charge. So, then in that case, it becomes very, very difficult for us to detect these neutrinos. All right, but neutrinos are everywhere in the universe, and that's why it's such a significant number is given to the neutrinos. 0.3% is a significant number in the context of what we are reading here. Then after that, 0.03%, if you see, 0.03% of heavy elements. Now, what do we mean by heavy elements? The meaning of heavy elements is every element apart from hydrogen and helium. Every element apart from hydrogen and helium, because hydrogen and helium we have already accounted for. 4% of this entire universe we are saying is just hydrogen and helium. So rest everything is called as heavy elements. So that's why it is basically little different from chemistry, because in chemistry when you say that something is a heavy element, what we mean is that these are elements which have very high atomic number or a very high atomic mass. Then in that case we say in chemistry that it's a heavy element. But when we are talking about astronomy or space science, heavy element means anything beyond hydrogen and helium. All right. So heavy elements, and then 0.17% of antimatter and electromagnetic radiations. What is electromagnetic radiation? We'll discuss about electromagnetic radiations in a lot more detail when we go to IT and communication chapter. But what you know is that ultraviolet light, gamma rays, radio waves, the visible light, all these are called as electromagnetic radiation. Antimatter. What do we mean by antimatter? Understand the meaning of antimatter. So when we say that there is something called as an antimatter, the meaning of antimatter is that we are talking about something where there is a particle with equal mass but opposite charge, will be called as antimatter. All right, any matter or any particle that has same mass and opposite charge will be called as antimatter. Let me give you an example. If we are talking about electrons, if we are talking about electrons, if I ask you whether protons are antimatter of electrons or not, can you say that protons are antimatter of electrons? Yes or no? You can write in the comments in the chat itself. Do you think that protons are antimatter of electrons? Some of you are saying yes, couple of you are saying no. The answer actually is no. There is something called as positron, which is called as the antimatter of electron. Why? Because when we talk about protons, all right, when we talk about protons, protons are heavier than electrons, almost 2000 times heavier than electrons. So how do we define an antimatter? We are saying that mass should be same, charge should be opposite. So between electrons and protons, charges are opposite, but the mass is not the same. Protons are much heavier than electrons, and that's why protons can't be called as the antimatter of electrons. We have positrons which are actually called as the antimatter of electrons. All right, so in this manner we define antimatter. Antimatter meaning different charge, I mean opposite charge and the same mass. All right, so these antimatter, these normally they are very highly unstable, but still they make up a large part of the universe. But all this, when you look at all this is just 5%. And what do you see out of this 5%? Nothing. 4% is hydrogen and helium. You can't see hydrogen or helium. 0.5% billions and billions of stars. You hardly see 10, 20, 50 of them. You can't see antimatter, you can't see neutrinos. So what you basically see is a very, very, very tiny fraction of this entire universe. But then there are bigger problems to see. And these bigger problems are dark energy and dark matter, which are making up 95%, making up 95% of this entire universe. Now, 95% is a big number. So let's try to understand what do we mean by dark energy and dark matter, and how are they making up 95% of this universe. First, to start with, what is dark energy? Dark energy, which is almost 68% of this entire universe. First and foremost, when we say dark, all right, dark energy or dark matter, we are not saying that these are dark energy or dark matter because there are some kind of dark forces that is running behind these kind of energy, that there is a super villain of this universe which is driving this energy, that's why this is dark energy or dark matter. Nothing like that. Why dark? Because we are in the dark. Why are we saying that we are in the dark? Because we don't know what they are. We just understand they must exist, we don't know what they are. So that's why conveniently named as dark energy and dark matter, because we are in the dark, we don't know what they are, but we just know about their existence. How? Let's say if we are talking about dark energy, how do we then know that dark energy exists? If we don't know what it is, why do we know that, or how do we know that it must exist but we don't know what it is? Understand this, and through this picture try to understand what I'm trying to say. First, the shape of the universe, understand the shape of the universe, and let's go back into the history of the shape as well. Initially it was believed by the scientists that the entire universe is in a steady state. Steady state meaning that whatever be the structure of the universe today, it was like this before, and it will continue remaining like this even after it. So for example, let's say these are three galaxies, right? And this is the relative position of these three galaxies. Now, the steady state theory, which was very firmly believed by the scientists, what it says is that even billions of years from now, the relative positions of these will always remain the same. So that's why steady state. But then came a scientist, yours truly again, Albert Einstein. When Albert Einstein was doing the research on his theory of relativity, he for the first time stumbled upon this. His calculations were showing that the universe should not be in a steady state, but rather the universe should be expanding. Right? His mathematics, his equations were showing that the universe should be expanding. But then he also was a firm believer of this steady state theory. He thought that he has committed a mistake. So even Albert Einstein did not have faith in Albert Einstein himself, that he thought that he had committed a mistake, and he even changed his equations. He changed his equations just to accommodate for steady state. It's like when you know the answer. Let's say there is a maths problem where you know the answer, and when you know the answer, you can write the steps. You just try to build up the steps between the question and the answer because you already know the answer. So something similar happened with him. He already knew the answer, so called, that he, because he was a believer, he thought that steady state theory is the correct theory. So whatever equations were showing, he just changed it to make the universe steady again. So universe became steady. But then came another scientist, Edwin Hubble. And Edwin Hubble became the scientist again. Almost, this was almost 12, 13 years after Einstein had changed his theory. Edwin Hubble also independently was able to prove that the universe is expanding. He was able to prove that the universe is expanding. Albert Einstein also quickly rushed and he read the paper. He read what Edwin Hubble had to say, and he saw that Edwin Hubble was correct, that universe is expanding. And this, as many say, Einstein called as the biggest blunder of his life. There are even documentaries made on it. Einstein's biggest blunder. If you even go to YouTube and search, you'll find it. So this is what happened, that he would have been the scientist to prove that the universe is expanding, but he did not believe that his equations were correct, so he changed those equations. Edwin Hubble later on was able to prove it again, that the universe is expanding. So uh, all all the awards, all the accolades, everything went to Edwin Hubble, and Einstein says that this is the biggest blunder of my life. So so now it was established that the universe is expanding. But then later there was another addition to this, that not only the universe is expanding, but the universe is expanding in an accelerated manner. What do we mean? See, if it was a normal expansion, it would be like this. This would be a normal expansion, but we are saying that it is an accelerated expansion like this. So universe is expanding in an accelerated manner is something that was established in the 1990s. As soon as this was established, as soon as this was proved to be correct, now there was the problem that, okay, fine, we know that the universe is expanding in an accelerated manner, but what kind of energy is leading to this expansion? We did not know the answer. We just know that there must be, see, for any kind of work to happen, there needs to be some kind of energy, right? There needs to be some kind of energy that pushes that work, that helps you do that work. So here also work is happening, that is the expansion of the universe. So if the expansion of the universe is happening, there must be some force, some form of energy that is leading to this accelerated expansion of the universe. Some form of energy. What is that kind of energy? What is the exact nature of energy? No idea. We still don't know. We're still trying to find. There are still so many researches going on all across the world to understand what this dark energy could be. Until now we have no firm answers. So that's why it was named as dark energy, because this is an unknown form of energy that is leading to accelerated expansion of the universe. According to scientists, this is what dark energy is, that it's an unknown form of energy leading to accelerated expansion of the universe. So that's why the name dark energy. So dark energy, unknown form of energy, hypothesized to permeate all of space, tending to accelerate the expansion of the universe. So that is what dark energy is, that we know that there must be some kind of energy behind the expansion of the universe, accelerated expansion of the universe. What form that energy has, we don't know, but there must be some energy. Otherwise, it's not possible that without any energy, some kind of work would happen. All right. So this is what dark energy is. Then there is the second concept, dark matter. So everything clear with dark energy? If you have any doubts, please let me know. If you want to ask anything, why call it energy and matter if we are in the dark? Why not only energy or only matter? Because we know that it is some form of energy, but because it's an X form of energy, we named it as dark energy. Same goes for dark matter as well, that we know that there is some kind of matter. What is the form of that matter? What are the properties of that matter? What are the characteristics of that matter? We don't know. So that's why the name dark matter. Please explain the definition of dark energy. Dark energy, as I simply told you, just understand this one line, that it's an unknown form. That's why dark, unknown form of energy, accelerated expansion of the universe, which leads to accelerated expansion of the universe. That's it. So just, I mean, out of all the story that we discussed, just remember this one line. Right. So then comes the next problem, dark matter, almost 27% of the universe. Almost 27% of the universe is dark matter. Now, what is dark matter? And again, how do we know that there is dark matter? Now, this is where the concept of dark matter basically comes from the difference that we see between our observation and our calculation. When we look at a galaxy, when we are observing a galaxy with, let's say, our instruments, our telescopes, etc., we observe something. But then when we look at the motions and all the movements that are happening in that galaxy, the calculations show a completely different picture. What exactly do I mean? Let's say what you observe with your telescope, let's say you see that, okay, 1000 kg should be the mass of this galaxy, but your calculation is showing that it's not 1000 kg, it is 2000 kg. So calculations are different, but observation is different. Just okay, just imagine your room. All right, right now maybe you are sitting somewhere in your room. You have a table, chair, maybe your bed, your books, laptop, whatnot. When you, let's say, take one by one, you take all these things and you weigh them out, and you find that, okay, fine, this room altogether with the bricks and the cement and everything in this room, it weighs, let's say, 1000 kg. But then what you do is, experimentally, let's say you pick this room as a whole, and you see that it's not 1000 kg but 2000 kg. But you already have accounted for everything that you saw in this room. So how is it possible that there is something else? So it either means that there is somebody else in the room, an unknown form, somebody who you can't see. Something like this is happening with you. It's a possibility, right? So, so then in that case, what happens is that this is dark matter. This is dark matter for you in the universe, where you don't see something, but you do know that there is a presence. You do know that there should be an unknown form of mass, a form of mass that we can't see, but it shows up in our calculations. So that ghost of the universe is dark matter. All right. And I sincerely hope that there is no such situation in your room right now. So, so dark matter, that's why we are saying that it's a mysterious, non-luminous substance making up vast majority of matter in the universe. So now what happens with dark matter is that we know that, okay, fine, because in the calculations the movements are completely different, our observations are different, and calculations show a different picture. So there must be something in this particular galaxy that we are not able to see, because our instruments are not good enough to see them. Our instruments are not good enough to see them, because it doesn't interact with baryonic matter. When we say baryonic simply means normal matter made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. Those kind of matter it does not interact with, and because it does not interact, it does not show its presence. We are not able to feel its presence. All right. And that's why we say that right now, with the current set of instruments, it is impossible to detect dark matter. Although there are a lot of new experiments that have been going on. uh, for example, last year it was in the news as well, called as Lux Zeppelin experiment, where they have been trying to find dark matter. One of the most important, I mean, one of the most important, you can say, experiments right now going on to try and understand what is dark matter and try and understand what dark matter could be. So, so that's why there are, and this is not the only experiment. There are a lot of other experiments also that have been going on for a while to understand what dark matter could be. But overall we do understand that dark matter should exist, otherwise we can't account for all the unknown form of the weight or the mass that we see everywhere. So that is what dark matter is. So dark matter, unknown form of matter, which must be there everywhere in the universe, but again we can't observe it. We just know that they are present. So that's why this is what dark matter is, and that's why this was an apt example for me to tell you what dark matter could be. That these are the known parts of our observation, and then these are the unknown forms of our observation, right? So this is what dark matter is. Anyone, any doubt about dark matter? Because these could be a little difficult concepts to grasp. My room is 200 years old. I hope you are alone in that room. Does science also believe in ghosts? It's a big discussion. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time to discuss that, but it's a very it's one of the most interesting topics to discuss, I know, for the people. And when you sit with your friends late night or at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m., this is where you start discussing these things that you should not. All right. Once again, so just let me just give you one more example. Dark matter, unknown form of matter which is there everywhere in the universe, which shows up in our calculations, but we are not able to see them with the kinds of telescopes, etc., that we have currently. That is what dark matter is. That it should exist, but we haven't been able to observe it yet. Now, Coming to the next topic, and this is about the formation of the universe. Now, when it comes to the formation of universe, what we see is that there are multiple theories about the formation of the universe. And these multiple theories that we have, out of these theories, there's one theory that has been very, very important and very, very popular, which is the Big Bang theory. The Big Bang theory. Now, the Big Bang theory has been the most widely accepted theory, but beyond Big Bang theory, also there are other theories as well which try to explain the formation of the universe. So, when it comes to the formation of the universe, understand what exactly do we see here. So, now there are various different theories. All right, there are various different theories. Now, when it comes to all the different theories that we have for the formation of the universe, what we see is that we have the steady state theory, we have the eternal inflation theory, we have the oscillating universe theory, string theory, the big bounce theory. So there are a lot of different theories that try to explain the formation of the universe. But why the Big Bang theory only became the most important or the most popular theory? Why not others? For example, we have discussed about the steady state theory, correct? Now this steady state theory, we already know that it has been discarded because we found that the universe is expanding, so there is no point of steady state theory. Then there is eternal inflation theory. Eternal inflation theory talks about the concept of multiverse, right? Multiverse, as you see in those Marvel movies and DC movies and all that. So that multiverse. But again, multiverse theories have been used a lot in the movies, etc. But in the real science, it has not been proved yet. So that's why multiverse, where it is saying that there are multiple universes happening all across, not there. Then there is an oscillating universe theory which says that the universe keeps on going from a kind of an expansion to contraction and then expansion and contraction. There is a cyclic nature that this universe has, according to the oscillating universe theory. That, for example, we discussed that universe is expanding, but what oscillation theory says is that universe is expanding right now, but again it will start to contract. Then when it is not possible to contract further, it will again start expanding, then again it will contract, and so on. But again, we haven't been able to prove it. Then comes string theory, and probably string theory is one such theory which is very, very crucial from the perspective of all the research that is happening in the world right now. String theory is one theory that would be able to prove a lot of things, is it will be able to actually explain a lot of things if proved to be correct. But again, hasn't been proved to be correct yet, and we'll discuss about what is string theory later. And then we have big bounce, which is kind of, you can say, derived from the string theory, and we'll have a basic discussion about what is big bounce as well, because these are two theories which are sometimes also seen in current affairs. So one theory which is very, very important, of course, is the Big Bang theory. And then apart from that, string theory and big bounce from the perspective of current affairs can be important. So first and foremost, let's try to understand what is the Big Bang theory and what does the Big Bang theory say. What Big Bang theory says is that the universe was hot and concentrated in the distant past, and ever since then, the space has been stretching and cooling. All right, hot and concentrated. What basically the Big Bang theory says is that the entire universe was a very small particle, a particle which had a size lesser than the size of a proton. Just imagine, we are saying that the entire universe was of a size which was even smaller than proton. That was the size of the universe. All right, and then something happened and started expanding. Now, here I also want to make one thing clear. Many a times in a lot of resources, books, or even if you go to the internet, you'll see that they say that there was an explosion that happened. Explosion would be a wrong word here when it comes to the Big Bang. You should say expansion. If we are technically being correct, we would say expansion and not explosion. Although I have seen that a lot of websites and a lot of resources here and there, they say that it was an explosion. but don't call it as an explosion. Say that it was an expansion. All right. So something led to an expansion in this proton size or lesser than proton sized universe, and everything in this universe was like a soup. Just imagine a soup where you have all the ingredients, let's say all the vegetables, etc., all mixed together, right? So that kind of a soup. So when we say everything, everything means all the forms of forces, all the forms of energy, all the forms of matter, all these things were like a soup in this very tiny particle, and then expansion started. All right, then expansion started, and when expansion started, this is where we see that the universe starts to come to its present form. Now, Now, when it comes to the Big Bang Theory, just there are why do we say that the Big Bang Theory is so important? Why has it become the most popular theory to explain the universe? Why so? Just understand this as well. Now, there are three evidences that we talk about. That there are three evidences that support the Big Bang Theory: Hubble expansion, cosmic microwave background, and then Big Bang nucleosynthesis. So what do we mean by Hubble expansion? First, Hubble expansion is very simple. We discussed what? We discussed that there is an accelerated expansion of the universe. That accelerated expansion of the universe is called as Hubble expansion. All right. This accelerated expansion of the universe is called as Hubble expansion. Then Big Bang nucleosynthesis. Let me come to this point first. It is nothing but the abundance of hydrogen and helium. We discussed about this as well, correct? We discussed about this, that hydrogen and helium, we discussed about this as well, that hydrogen and helium are abundant. Almost 4% of the entire universe is just hydrogen and helium, right? So this is called as Big Bang nucleosynthesis. So a fancy word for something which is known, correct? So this is called as Big Bang nucleosynthesis. Now, the third concept is the concept of cosmic microwave background. Let's try to understand what is the meaning of cosmic microwave background. Break down these words. First word is cosmic. What is cosmic? Can somebody tell me quickly? What is cosmic? What is the dictionary meaning of the word cosmic? Anything in space, correct? Related to the universe, right? Present everywhere. You can say that related to space would be a better way to put it. Yeah, so cosmic means anything that is in the space, anything related to the space or anything that we find here and there in the universe. Cosmic. What is microwave? Any idea? Anyone who knows what is microwave? Anyone who knows what is microwave? Even if you don't, doesn't matter. Yeah, it is a kind of a small wave form of electromagnetic radiation. Perfectly correct. So this is microwave basically is a kind of electromagnetic radiation. This is an electromagnetic radiation related to heat. Related to heat. All right. So wherever you have very enormous amount of heat, microwaves definitely will be present there. We'll discuss more about microwaves when we go to IT and communication chapter. So cosmic microwave background. Now, background means what? You know, background, anything that is in the background. So why are we saying cosmic microwave background? Now understand this. Now these three pictures that you see on the screen here, these three pictures, they are the pictures of cosmic microwave background that have been taken via different experiments that have been launched over the last you can say few decades. So first picture that you see here, this picture was taken by the first such mission, which was COBE, COBE, and this was back in 1993. This first picture was taken by COBE, and this was 1993. Now, uh, for the first time, it detected or it showed the presence of cosmic microwave background, and the scientists who were involved with this process, they were also awarded with the Nobel Prize. Then the second one, this picture that you see, is a much better detailed picture. It was called as W map. This was in 2006. This was the second such experiment that was conducted to understand cosmic microwave background. And as you can see, it's a better detailed picture. And then a much better form of the same was the third one, which was Planck. This was Planck, and it was has been functional after 2009. So we see that a much better picture. So these are evidences. I mean, these show the pictures of the cosmic microwave background. But why is this cosmic microwave background present? Just understand this. Look at this picture. This picture is trying to show W map, all right? That how W map is basically looking at cosmic microwave background. Now just imagine that you are sitting, let's say maybe at your home or somewhere, maybe on the roof of your house. You have a good telescope with you, and with that telescope you're trying to observe the outer space. You're just sitting one fine night and you're observing the night sky, and then you see that there are so many celestial bodies that you will observe. So something similar is here. As you can see that this you have this mm, uh, W map, and this W map is looking at the outer space, and it finds there are so many celestial bodies around it. But in the background it sees that there is microwave, that there is a presence of microwave in the background, as you can see here, right? So there are all these celestial bodies which are present in the path, and in the background there is cosmic microwave background, or the microwave evidence that it sees. So sorry, so from that perspective, this is where we got the evidence. This is where we got the evidence of the presence of cosmic microwave background. All right, so this also became an evidence. Now why are we saying that these are evidences supporting the Big Bang theory? Why are these evidences? And just understand from this perspective that why did Big Bang theory become the most popular, most widely accepted theory for the formation of the universe? All right, so first and foremost, all these evidences that we are talking about, the Hubble expansion, for example, accelerated expansion of the universe, found in 1990s. Cosmic microwave background, found in 1990s. Correct. So when we are looking at all these things, we know that these were found in 19 or discovered in 1990s. But the Big Bang theory, the Big Bang theory was available for us in 1960s. That this was a theory that was proposed in 1960s itself. So whatever it had predicted, whatever the Big Bang theory had predicted, we were able to prove that at a later stage. If it was the other way around, that we already knew about these evidences, and based on those evidences somebody has made a theory, then in that case it would not be as popular a theory as it is right now. Correct. So it has become a very popular theory just because of the fact that it first made the predictions and later we were able to prove those predictions to be correct. So that's why it becomes such an important theory. Now why cosmic microwave background is important? Because cosmic microwave background tells you about the fact that it was very hot and concentrated. Remember, what did we discuss in the Big Bang? We said that the universe was hot and concentrated in the distant past, and ever since then, it has been stretching and cooling. Correct? Ever since then, it has been stretching and cooling. So that's why, because we are saying that it was very hot and concentrated in the distant past, this is what cosmic microwave background is able to prove. So that's why I'm just writing it out here. The presence of cosmic microwave background proves that the temperature of the early universe was very high as predicted by the Big Bang theory. All right. So that's why cosmic microwave background becomes very, very crucial in proving that the Big Bang theory has done a very decent job. All right. So that is how we know about all this. Now, when we look at what exactly happened in the Big Bang theory, we see that there are phases of development. Now, all these names may not be important for you. Just understand the story that I'm telling you. All right. So the story basically is that first and foremost, starting from the Big Bang until 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds. What is 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds? 0.42 zeros and then 1, right? Something like this, 0.000000 so on 1. All right, so this basically is the 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds. So when we are talking about this So when we are talking about this 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds, we are saying that this is the Planck era, meaning that this is where you had the entire universe as a very small. So universe as a very small particle. Then you have the inflationary era. Now, when we say inflationary era, inflationary comes from the word inflation. What is the meaning of inflation? What do we mean by inflation? I'm sure you have heard the word inflation. So tell me what it is. What do you mean by swelling? Okay, fine. Yeah, in the context of economy, you have heard it, correct? जो फैलता है, okay, fine, correct. Price increases, yeah, in the context of economy, that's correct. So similarly, when we say inflation, as some of you have rightly put forward, it's kind of a swelling, correct? So this is what happened. What I was telling you is that an expansion started in the universe. So this is what happened between 10 to the power of minus 43 to up to 10 to the power of minus 33 seconds. That universe started expanding. Universe started expanding. All right, the universe started expanding. Then after that, now just remember that at this point of time, at this phase, the temperature of the universe was 10 to the power of 32 degrees Celsius. 10 to the power of 32 degrees Celsius was the temperature of the universe, meaning 1 followed by 32 zeros. So 10 to the power of 32 degrees Celsius was the temperature of the universe. So in this manner, what we see is that temperature was very high. Then when inflation started, or the swelling started, expansion started. This is where this is where we see that now it started cooling. But again, there is a reheating phase, that again the temperature starts to rise. But reheating phase is important for one other fact, that for the first time the particles started to exist. And there was this first particle that existed now, called as the quark. The first particle to exist was the quark. All right. So quark was the first particle to exist. From here on, we see that there are two families of particles that were formed from the quarks. One was hadrons, the family of hadrons, and the family of leptons. Now, from hadrons, there are two particles that I'm sure you have heard of: protons and neutrons. So, protons and neutrons were basically formed out of hadrons. And from the leptons, there are three kinds of particles that were formed: electrons, again muons, and taus. TAU. These were the three different types of particles formed out of leptons. Although when we look at the stability of the particles, what we see is that these particles, protons and neutrons, were stable. These two particles were stable, and electrons were stable. Others were very highly unstable, and they very quickly just decayed into these kind of particles. For example, all the muons and taus, they were very highly unstable, they converted into electrons. So only the stable particles now, these stable particles, they start existing in the particle era. They start existing in the particle era starting from 10 to the power of minus 10 seconds up to the 10th second. And at the end of the 10th second, proton and electron came together, formed the first atom, which was hydrogen. So hydrogen comes into existence at Big Bang nucleosynthesis. So reheating phase is where the quarks basically are formed. Particle phase is where all the different particles, they start to exist. And then finally Big Bang nucleosynthesis, when hydrogen was formed, and from there on we see that helium is formed out of hydrogen. That hydrogen fuses and forms helium, and this kept on happening until the 20th minute. So all these things, from very small particle to all the particles existing separately, then from there on coming to the quarks and the hadrons and the leptons and the protons and the neutrons and the electrons, then hydrogen formation, helium formation, all that happened in 20 minutes. All that happened within 20 minutes. And then after that we see that this is where the phase of development more or less ends. We come to the photon era, starts from the 20th minute, goes on to up to 3,80,000 years, where we see that at the end of this, the first star is formed. The first star is formed at the end. The first star is formed at the end of 3,80,000 years. So then we see that this is basically what the Big Bang theory says, and this is how the phases of development might have been according to the Big Bang theory. But there still are a couple of things that have not been explained by the Big Bang theory. First of all, it does not talk about what before the Big Bang, and secondly, it does not talk about what caused the Big Bang. So we don't know what the Big Bang was, or what before the Big Bang was, because we are talking about this particle, right? We are saying that okay, this particle existed, but we are not saying where did this particle come from. We are not explaining anything about the existence of that particle at the first place. And secondly, what was the trigger? Why all of a sudden this particle started expanding? No idea. We have no idea about it. So that is where we see that this is where the Big Bang theory, this still is not answering these two questions. Let's see, in the future perhaps it does, but as of now it does not. So this is what the Big Bang is. Any question from the Big Bang theory? Any question if you have? Fission is a very different concept. We'll discuss about it later. Please explain quark. So quark basically was the first particle to ever exist in our universe. So that basically what the quark was. Now, when it comes to quarks, I mean, in general, when we talk about quarks in particle physics, it's a very different kind of particle. Because, for example, when we talk about an electron, or when we talk about a proton and neutrons, etc., in that case, we know that, for example, for proton, we say that it has a +1 charge, and for electrons we say that it has a -1 charge, and neutron has 0 charge, right? But when it comes to a quark is very different in the sense that quark has fractional charges: +1 by 3, -1 by 3, +2 by 3, -2 by 3. These are fractional charges, and two or three quarks together, when they combine, they form an electron or a proton. So for example, when we say that a proton has a +1 charge, so +1 charge means what? That there will be two fractions that will come together and they'll form a proton. For example, a +1 by 3 and a +2 by 3 charge uh, comes in, and they will basically will form a proton. Similarly, let's say -1 by 3 and -2 by 3 come together and they will form a -1 charge. plus 2 by 3 and minus 2 by 3, all these will come together, they will form uh, so so what happens is that three of these quarks will combine together to form some kind of charged particle, the known charged particles that you know of. So that is what it is. So I'm not going to the details because it goes into the technical side of uh, particle physics, but just remember one small thing about the quarks, that quarks have fractional charges, and quarks will make hadrons and leptons that ultimately make up protons, neutrons, and electrons. What are quasars? So quasars, basically you can say that in a manner, uh, we say that these are quasi stellar objects. All right, quasars basically comes from there, quasi stellar objects, meaning that these are very bright objects. All right, these are very bright objects which have enormous amount of energy, and they often are said to be powered by supermassive black holes. That wherever you have black holes, you perhaps will have a quasar somewhere at the center of some galaxy. We'll discuss more about black holes, and there probably it will make it easier for you to understand what we mean by quasars. But this is what basically it is in simple terms. It's different because it is related to another dimension. I'm not sure what you are explaining. Please rephrase the question. Anyway, once explain the fourth point. What fourth point? Are you talking about the particle error here? So if that's the case, then in that case, what we are saying is that in the particle era, all these hadrons, leptons were formed. From the hadrons, we see that different types of particles are formed from here. So protons and neutrons come into the existence from the hadrons, and then from the leptons, electrons are actually formed from there. So this is what was happening in the particle era. What is the difference between energy and matter? So matter, in simple terms, we say that anything that has mass and occupies space is called as matter. All right, energy on the other hand, you can say that mass is a form of energy, meaning that matter in a manner, you can say that it takes the component of energy inside it. It has some kind of you can say stored energy inside in one form or the other. Is it important to remember for prelims? I would say that these concepts are fine enough. I mean, the stories are important. The specific terms might not be. What is black hole? We'll have a discussion later. Don't worry. All right. Let's take a very small break here. It's 11:50 right now. So can we be back by 12? Take a small break and let's be back at 12, and we will move forward with string theory and the celestial bodies after that. All right. Welcome back, everyone. So let's move forward. The next topic for us is string theory. Now, first and foremost, let's try to understand what string theory is and why exactly has it generated so much interest that all of a sudden it has become a topic which is being discussed everywhere, and once in a while you will find the mention of string theory. So, first thing, what we mean by string theory. Now, string theory, of course, you have this word string. What is string? You know, for example, let's say uh, any musical instrument that you perhaps see, a guitar, a sitar, violin, etc. You know that there are strings there. So, it string theory is called as string theory because it tries to explain the universe in a very similar manner, as to how a musical instrument is played. Now, what do I mean? So, what happens with string theory is it tries to describe the fundamental level of the universe in terms of vibrating strings rather than particles. What do we mean here? What string theory says is that the entire universe, all the particles, all the matter, all the different types of energy, everything is made from tiny strings, and various vibrations in these tiny strings produce different particles. So it's just like playing guitar, that when you play the guitar, or when, let's say, the vibrations in these strings are uh, produced differently, this is where you are able to make different kind of music. You're able to make different kinds of musical notes. So similarly here also it talks about the same thing. It says that in case of the universe also, the entire universe and all the particles and all the energy in this universe, they are all made of these tiny strings, and when these all different vibrations happen in the strings, they produce the different types of particles. So I'm just writing it out here as well, that what it says is that various particles and energy are produced when the tiny strings produce different vibrations. So different vibrations will produce all these various particles and energy. Now, so this is what it says. Now, why has this theory become so important? Why is this theory being discussed so much? Understand this as well. Look at the second point. It is considered as a candidate for the theory of everything, and it tries to explain the four fundamental forces. Now, two things you have to understand. First and foremost, what do we mean by theory of everything? One. And secondly, what do we mean by these fundamental forces? What are these fundamental forces? So, first and foremost, theory of everything. Now, theory of everything is a theory that has been a very popular theory among the scientists, and where the scientists have been trying to decode how exactly can we combine all the different types of forces together into one single force. So first thing is fundamental forces. What are fundamental forces? There are four fundamental forces that we count. Do you know the names? Anyone who knows the names? What forces are called as fundamental forces? Which all forces are called as fundamental forces? Anyone who can name it quickly? Okay, gravity, correct. Fine. I'll also keep writing as you suggest. One is gravity, fine. So gravitational force is one. Electromagnetic force, yes, that's also correct. So let me add electromagnetic force also to this. Nuclear force is absolutely correct. So weak nuclear force and strong nuclear force. All right. So one is strong nuclear force and one is weak nuclear force. One more is weak nuclear force. So these four are called as fundamental forces. These four forces are called as, sorry, These four forces are called as fundamental forces. So gravitational force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. These four forces are called as fundamental forces. Now, why they are called as fundamental forces? Because every other force that you know of, all these forces can actually be explained as one of these four forces. That's why these four forces are called as fundamental forces. Now, what theory of everything says is that it tries the unification of all these forces. Currently, all these are different forces, right? These are different kinds of forces. They have very different characteristics. They have very different properties. But what theory of everything says is it talks about the unification. Theory of everything basically talks about the unification of the fundamental forces. Unification of the fundamental forces. So this is basically what theory of everything says. Although we haven't been able to prove it yet, we haven't been able to prove whether the string theory is correct or not. There is one scientist who basically dedicated almost 20-30 years of his life or more than that in thinking or uh, making or rather studying the theory of everything. Do you know the name? Who was this scientist who has done a lot of research in theory of everything? A very famous name. Yes, Stephen Hawking. Have you heard of him? Stephen Hawking. So Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest scientists of our times, he almost spent 30 years of his life just studying about theory of everything, trying to prove theory of everything. Although unfortunately, he passed on a few years back. He was not able to prove it yet. But there are so many other scientists also who are trying to prove theory of everything, because if it is done, then in that case the science or the physics as we know today completely changes, and your ncrts will start changing if that happens, because a lot of physics that we know of will be completely different then. So this is what string theory basically is about. Look at this question. This was asked in your 2017 paper. I'm launching the poll for you. Please mark your answers. Wow, wonderful. 84% of you have given the correct answer. That's great to see. Let me just still, for the rest of you, let me just tell you what exactly the answer has to be. The question is the terms event horizon, singularity, string theory, and standard model are sometimes seen in the news in the context of. Fine. We still haven't seen what is event theory, sorry, event horizon, singularity. We have studied about the string theory and standard model also, we haven't. Now, in the context of what you know about string theory, look at the four options. First is observation and understanding of the universe. String theory is related to explaining what the universe is. Could be correct. Study of the solar and the lunar eclipses. We did not discuss anything about it. Placing satellites in the orbit. We did not discuss anything about it. Origin and evolution of living organisms on the earth. It's not only about the living organisms, right? It's about everything in the universe. So even this can't be correct. So correct answer, that's why, will be A, observation and understanding of the universe. Now, this one term, standard model, understand what is standard model as well. Standard model basically is when we take electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force together. When we take electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force together, this is called a standard model. Now, what's wrong with gravity? Why is gravity not a part of the standard model? Why have we pushed it aside? The reason is gravitation is, complete the answer please for me. Why gravitation is not a part of the standard model? Any idea, anyone if has? Otherwise, I'll anyway discuss with you. Is it the same theory that talks about Doppler effect? Not exactly, it's very different. Why gravitation is not a part of standard model? Any idea? Anyone who has an idea? Yeah, okay. So what happens here is that when we look at the magnitude of the four forces, what we see is that the strong nuclear force is the strongest force, then after that electromagnetic force, then after that weak nuclear force, and then compared to all these, gravitational force is very weak. All right, gravitational force is very weak, and that's why we see that when we are doing the observations or calculations for very far off distances, billions and billions of kilometers across the universe, then in that case gravitational force becomes negligible. Force becomes so small, so weak, that we can't even do any observation with the help of gravitation, and that's why gravitation has been left out. All right, that's why gravitation has been left out. So that is the reason why gravitation has not been included as a part of the standard model. Do you remember the uh, formula for force of gravitation? Anyone who remembers? Class ninth you have studied, has been probably a long time for you. Do you remember the formula for the force of gravitation? Yes, m1 m2 g, but not the exact formula. Yes, g m1 m2 by r square, correct. So you have g m1 m2 by r square. This is how we define force of gravitation. Now g is a constant, m1 and m2 are the masses, but look at distance. So in a manner, you can say that force is inversely proportional to the square of distance, meaning that when the distance becomes from 1 to 4, sorry, 1 to 2, the force becomes 1 to 1 by 4, correct? Square of 2. So when it is 1, it is 1. When it is 2, it becomes 1 by 2 square, that is 1 by 4. So just imagine that when the distance is 1 billion kilometers, the force is weaker by 1 billion kilometers squared. So that's why we see that it actually becomes very weak, and hence we don't consider it as a part of the standard model. Now coming to the next part of our discussion, and this is about all the celestial bodies. Now when it comes to the celestial bodies, the very first celestial body, perhaps one of the most important one, is a star. Now when we say that something is a star, how do we define a star? We say that star is a celestial body that generates light by nuclear reactions and is held by its own gravity. What is the meaning? That this is a celestial body which is able to produce or generate a lot of light and actually also heat. Light and heat with the help of nuclear reactions. And what kind of nuclear reactions are these? These are nuclear fusion reactions. So with the help of nuclear fusion reaction, we see that a lot of heat and light is produced by a celestial body. So whenever there is any celestial body that can produce its own heat and light, is held by its own gravity due to produces a lot of heat and light with the help of nuclear fusion, and is held by its own gravity, and you can say in a manner has a spherical shape because of its gravity, it is called as a star. Now in case of a star, first and foremost we need to understand how the formation of a star happens. So initially what we see is that a star will often be formed from something called as a nebula. Formation of a star will happen from a nebula. Now what is a nebula? Now nebula, these kind of structures, what you see here, basically this is the structure of a nebula. Looks very beautiful. I mean, what is nebula? I would say that nebula is the most widely used screensaver and wallpaper on your computers and desktops all across the world. There was actually a survey that was conducted once where they found that uh, nebula is the most widely used screensaver and wallpaper. They look beautiful, and that's why these pictures are often used as screensavers and wallpapers by many people across the world. So, but that's not what nebula is. All right. So, what is a nebula? Nebula, simple terms, these are clouds of dust. Clouds of dust and gases, hydrogen gas, ammonia, other gases, they will all be present in a region. So, it's just a region not defined by any shape. You can't say that it is circular or it is cubical and all that. Not defined by any shape, more or less, most of the times, not defined by any shape, but it is a region of dust and gases. A region of dust and gases. Now, what happens is that from this region of dust and gases, all of a sudden, nuclear fusion reactions will start, and hydrogen will start to combine and form helium. Now, slowly and steadily from here, what happens is that a ball of mass is created. And as soon as a ball of mass is created, uh, this will of course have its own gravity because of the mass. So it will start attracting everything else which is there in the surrounding areas. And as it starts to attract it, this is where it starts to become a bigger ball of mass, and something which is first called as a protostar and then ultimately formed as a star. So this is basically what we see here, that it originates from a nebula. Nebula, basically, they are clouds of dust and hydrogen gas. And then, so I'm just writing it out here, a region in space consisting of dust and gases. Region in space consisting of dust and gases is called as nebula. So from nebula, we'll see that the formation of a star will begin, and then ultimately, this is where we'll see that the formation of a star will happen. So now, after the formation of the star, one very important concept with regards to the star is the life cycle of a star. All right, the life cycle of a star. Now, I have a question for you here. Let me ask you a question. All right, and the question is, when the sun dies, when the sun dies, I'll launch the poll for you as well. When the sun dies, spelling is wrong, sorry. It will convert into a black hole. Take it as a true or false question. Suppose that UPSC has given you this question and has asked you whether this is true or false, that when the sun dies, it will convert into a black hole. Please mark your answers, please. So 71% of you feel it's A, 29% of you feel it's B. Himanshu, you have the perfect answer, but let me discuss this with everyone else. So actually, the answer is false. When the sun dies, the sun will not convert into a black hole because sun is very small for it. Understand this, and that's why uh, statements like these could be very confusing, because we have a general notion that when black holes are formed when a star dies. All right, you might have heard it somewhere that when a star dies, black holes are formed. But it's not that every star, when it dies, it will convert into a black hole. There are certain criteria to be fulfilled, and this criteria is on the basis of what the mass of the star is. All right, so from the nebula there are two types of stars that are formed. average star, and massive star. Average star, our sun, for example, counts as a as an average star. What is an average star? Any star that has a mass up to 1.44 times. Any star that has mass up to 1.44 times the mass of the sun. Up to 1.44 times mass of the sun, they will be called as an average star. All right, they'll all be called as an average star. What happens with an average star? So 1.44 meaning that, let's say if you assume that the sun is 100 grams, so any star which has a mass up to 144 grams, they will call them as average star. All right, so when the average star dies, it first converts into a red giant, then it basically collapses into a nebula. It collapses into a nebula, and then from there on, a white dwarf is formed. All right, so an average star like the sun will ultimately convert into a white dwarf, not a black hole. All right, not a black hole. It will happen with the massive stars. Massive stars meaning the stars that have a mass more than 1.44 times the mass of the sun, they'll be the ones that will first convert into a red supergiant. Then after that, sorry, then after that, supernova will take place. Supernova is nothing but an explosion. Explosion at the center of the red supergiant. This is called as supernova. Supernova is nothing but an explosion that happens because the center of this red supergiant becomes very, very unstable. And because of this instability, we see that an explosion basically happens here. And this explosion is called as supernova. Now, from here on also, either a neutron star will be formed or a black hole will be formed. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee that when a star dies, it will always convert into a black hole. Or when even a massive star, when a massive star dies, it will always convert into a black hole. No, it may convert into a black hole. All right, it may convert into a black hole. We can't say it will convert into a black hole. English will matter if these kind of questions come, or if this kind of a statement is made, because it's a uh, very confused state that we see. I mean, because we have a very basic understanding that fine, black holes are formed when star dies, but what kind of star? Not every star. All right, it's not that every star when it dies it will convert into a into a black hole. It may or may not. So this is what we see. And even when you see terms like planetary nebula, planetary does not mean that it forms a planet. It's just that it has a kind of a disc shaped region. That's why it is called as a planetary nebula. Otherwise it has no uh, relation whatsoever with any planet. So one must not confuse planetary nebula. Wherever you see any nebula, nebula will be formed before or after the star. So it will either lead to the formation of a star, or it will be formed when the star has died. So an average star, so when the sun dies, it will not convert into a white dwarf. It will not convert into a black hole. It will form a white dwarf. It will form a white dwarf. And then you have, even for the massive stars, you have either neutron stars or black holes. We'll discuss what black holes are. Neutron stars, just remember one line about neutron stars, that neutron stars are the smallest stars. They are the smallest stars in the universe. They are the smallest stars in the universe. So this is the life cycle of a star. Look at this question. This was asked in your 2009 paper. Very quickly launching the poll for you as well. Please mark your answers. Hmm. So 14% of you have marked A, 18% B, 57% C, and 11% D. The actual answer is B. It is S. Chandrasekhar. Who among the following proved that the stars with mass less than 1.44 times the mass of the sun end up as white dwarf when they die? It was an Indian scientist, S. Chandrasekhar, and that's why this 1.44 is also called as Chandrasekhar limit. If you have come across this term anywhere, this is what Chandrasekhar limit is. So he was the one to prove, and he was even ridiculed for it because, of course, I mean, the European scientists and the um, American scientists would never accept that an Indian scientist has come up with a theory. So when he came up with this theory, nobody believed him, and they said that this is a very ridiculous theory. But then he proved it to be correct, and then everyone had to uh, go back from their statements that they were making against uh, Chandrasekhar. So that's why it was very, very crucial. And this number 1.44, this number is also called as Chandrasekhar limit, because we know that if it is beyond 1.44, you call it as a massive star, and massive star does not form a white dwarf. It either forms a neutron star or it forms a black hole, right? So this is basically what we know about it. Now, what do we mean by a black hole? So when it comes to black hole as a topic, now there are two terms that you have here: black hole. Why black? Why hole? Understand this. So the first term is black. Why black? Because of absence of light. Because of absence of light. Because this is a region in space where we say that even light particles are not able to escape, and that's why this is a place that becomes completely dark, and that's why it is called as a black hole. So black because of that, and hole because you can say that it has a shape like a well, or let's say a funnel. All right, it has a funnel like shape. It has a funnel like shape, and that's why hole. So that's why black hole. Now if you look at the structure, for example, if you see this, this is what the structure of a black hole is. This is the structure of a black hole. Now what happens is that in case of black holes, we say that these are gravitationally so strong areas, so strong regions in space, that even light is not able to escape. Now what do we mean by light not being able to escape? We understand that what happens is that because it's a very strong gravitational area, anything that is in the vicinity, anything that is in the surroundings, they will start falling into the black hole. All right, they'll start falling into the black hole. But even light is not able to escape. Light is supposed to be a wave. How do we say that even light is not able to escape? Because light can also be taken as particle. Light also has a particle like nature, and hence uh, we see that even light particles, they are not able to escape this black hole, and they would fall into the black hole. And when do they fall into the black hole? If they basically cross this boundary. This boundary is called as event horizon. This boundary is called as horizon. And until the point, let's say something is here or something is here, they would not fall into the black hole. They might be attracted very heavily, but still there are chances that they'll be able to survive. But once they cross this, and once they are in the event horizon, then in that case, they'll be pulled towards the center of the black hole. They'll be pulled towards the center of the black hole, which is called as singularity. Just imagine a well. All right. Let's say if you have a well, you know that the well will be guarded by a boundary. What happens if you cross that boundary? You fall into that well. So don't try that at home. All right. So what will happen is that if you cross the boundary, you fall into the boundary. Why? Because of the gravitational pull, you simply go inside the well, you fall into the well. Or if there is any particle, or let's say you have a ball crosses the boundary, falls into the well. So similarly here also, so that boundary is the event horizon. So if anything crosses this boundary, they will fall into the black hole. So event horizon is the boundary of the black hole, boundary of the black hole, right? Boundary of the black hole beyond which any particle falls into the center of the black hole. Falls into the center of the black hole, and this center of the black hole is called as singularity. Singularity basically is the center of the black hole. So this is what we know. This is what we know about the black hole. So basically what we talk about is that overall, when we talk about black hole, understand these 2 points, especially what is event horizon and what is singularity. Event horizon is the boundary that if you cross this boundary you fall into the black hole. Singularity is the center of this black hole. So what we say about black hole is that these black holes, they are places in space where the pulling force of gravity is so strong that even light cannot escape. So from there on, we see that this is basically what black hole is. Now, overall, look at this picture. This picture that you see right here, this picture is the picture or the first picture that we have ever taken of a black hole. This was the first picture ever taken of a black hole. Before this, if you just Google the images of black hole, you will see that wonderful images, beautiful looking images will be shown in the movies, etc. Also, they have shown wonderful pictures of what black hole could look like. But unfortunately, this is what black hole looks like. uh, just as an exercise, just go and Google black hole, find in Google images what different kind of images that you get in the black hole when you search for the term black hole. But unfortunately, this is how it looks like. It's just the difference between your real picture and your Aadhaar card picture. So this is the Aadhaar card picture of the black hole. So now this was the first picture ever taken by the black of a black hole, and it was taken with the help of a telescope program called as the Event Horizon Telescope, EHT. Event Horizon Telescope program. This was the program that was able to take the first picture of a black hole. And what you see here also is that the middle portion is dark, right? This is where you have the singularity. This is where you have the singularity, and this, in a manner, you can say is the boundary or the event horizon. This is the boundary or the event horizon. So this is basically how we have taken the first picture of the black hole. This belongs to M87. The name of the black hole is M87. So it has been taken with the help of Event Horizon Telescope. So if you see here that the Event Horizon Telescope program captured the first image of black hole M87 in 2019. Last year again it was in the news because it has now also captured the image of Sagittarius A star. Sagittarius A star, which is basically at the center of our Milky Way galaxy. So at the center of our Milky Way galaxy, we have this particular black hole called as Sagittarius A star, and its picture also has been taken now last year with the help of again the Event Horizon Telescope program. Now, this Event Horizon Telescope program is also very special program because it's not one single telescope, but rather a set of different telescopes which have been placed all across the world, and they are able to capture the image of a black hole. So that was the first picture taken of a black hole. Then now one more very very important concept, and this is the concept of gravitational waves. If you remember, we discussed about gravitational waves when I was telling you about uh, the importance of how to pick the topics. So gravitational wave as a concept is something that was predicted by Albert Einstein in 1915. And from there on, it took us almost 100 years to prove his prediction right. Right? So figured out gravitational wave a century ago without even knowing what a computer is. And with all the technologies that we have today, with all the advancements that we have today, we finally were able to prove him correct. So this is the genius of Albert Einstein, that how he has been able to contribute to our basic understanding of everything that we do and everything that we see in physics, uh, all across. Right? So gravitational wave, what do we mean by a gravitational wave? Just try to understand this. All right? So gravitational wave, two words again, gravitational and wave, meaning that this should be a wave of gravitational origin. That's why gravitational wave. So in case of a gravitational wave, what we basically see is that gravitational wave would be produced because of anything that is very massive or anything that is very highly energetic in the universe. Just imagine this. When it comes to the shape of space time or the shape of space, let's keep it simple. We can assume or imagine it to be exactly like a football goalpost. What happens in a football goalpost? Let's say you have a football that you kick into the football goalpost. What happens as soon as it goes and collides with the goalpost? The wave, or the net basically will form a kind of a wave because of the impact that happened. Correct. The higher the impact, the more would be the waves. Correct. Let's say instead of a normal football, you take a football made of iron, made of, let's say, some kind of metal, and then you kick it into the football goalpost. What will happen? First, you will break your leg, but then what will happen? In the football goalpost, in the net, it will make a much more violent wave as compared to if it was a normal football. Correct? So, something similar happens in the space as well. When you have something which is very massive, black holes, uh, convergence of two black holes, collision of two galaxies, formation of a black hole itself, two stars colliding, two galaxies merging, all these things, which are very, very massive in nature, all these things, they will form gravitational waves because waves will be generated in that space mesh that we have, and these waves will be carried on for a very, very long distance. And that's why we'll see that this is where the gravitational waves will be formed. So this is what gravitational waves are. Now what happens is that the gravitational waves, we also say that gravitational waves also carry the information about their origin, about where they have come from. And that's why gravitational waves from that perspective becomes very, very crucial, because gravitational waves are able to uh, give you some information about how they were generated, where they were generated from. But just remember one thing, that anything that is very massive in the universe, anything that is very highly energetic, anything that is very violent will produce gravitational waves. So that's why two galaxies merging, two stars colliding, very massive super massive black holes forming, or even two black holes merging or even colliding, all these kind of things, they will produce gravitational waves. Smaller things will not. For example, earth will not. Earth will also produce a dent in this net, but earth is not massive enough that huge gravitational waves will be formed from here. But wherever you have any event which is very, very massive, very highly energetic, gravitational waves will be formed there. So this is what we see. So caused due to violent and energetic events like colliding of black holes, supernova, colliding of neutron stars, etc. Even, as I said, emergence of galaxies, etc., will also lead to gravitational wave formation. Now, when it comes to gravitational waves, as I told you that although the prediction was done by Albert Einstein back in 1915, we were able to detect the gravitational wave for the first time almost 100 years later with the help of laser interferometer gravitational wave observatory called as LIGO. This picture that you see right here, this picture is of this observatory called as LIGO, and this LIGO was the first observatory, or it was able to detect a gravitational wave for the first time. Now, When it comes to India, India is also developing its own gravitational wave observatory, which has been named as Indigo LIGO, because we are doing it with the help of LIGO. We are building it with the help of LIGO. That's why the name Indigo LIGO has been given to this particular observatory. So gravitational waves were detected for the first time here. Look at this question. I have not given you any context about this question, but I want you to think what the answer should be and mark what you think should be the answer. Let us have a discussion on it. Hmm. So 61% of you have given the correct answer. Let me just discuss this with you. The question says recently, scientists observed merger of giant black holes billions of light years away from the Earth. What is the significance of this observation? First is Higgs boson particles were detected. So look at what is the most important phrase of this question. Merger of giant black holes. What will happen when merger of giant black holes happen? We just discussed this. Anything that is massive, anything very highly energetic, anything very violent will lead to black hole formation, right? Sorry, gravitational wave formation. So merger of giant black holes. Just imagine, even presence of a single black hole is very massive. When you have two black holes which are merging together, gravitational waves will be produced from here. Gravitational waves without failing, without any exception, will be produced from here. So first is Higgs boson particles were detected. So Higgs boson particles are very small particles, nothing to do with such a giant event. So that's why this is wrong. Second is gravitational waves were detected. Looks to be correct. Possibility of intergalactic space travel through wormhole was confirmed. This has been confirmed only in the movie Interstellar, nothing beyond that. So it's very much a science fiction concept. It enabled the scientists to understand singularity. Now, here you might get confused. Why? Because we are talking about singularity. And singularity, we already discussed that it is related to black hole. So you see black hole, you see singularity, you might see that, you might think that, okay, fine, this should be the correct answer. But it is not. Because without failing, whenever such events happen, gravitational waves will be produced from there. And it is not related to our understanding of singularity as such. It is more related to the detection of gravitational waves. And this is what had happened, that merger of these giant black holes, these two black holes, they produce very enormous sized gravitational wave, which basically was produced here. So that's why, if you, let's say, had to take a guess, the guess would always be between B and D, not between A and C. But now between B and D also you will have to think further in the direction of what you see. That if you think, if you only look at black hole, you might see that it is singularity. You might think that it is singularity. But the main phrase is merger of giant black holes. So when merger of giant black holes happen, gravitational waves, without any exception, without fail, will be produced from such events. And hence, if somebody had to just take a guess, the guess would be on B, and that's why B actually is the correct answer. So everything clear? If you have any doubts until now, whatever we have discussed, you can ask those questions. Let's discuss them and then only let's move forward. There are theories about white holes. White holes, something that exactly opposite of black hole, relevant for us. I wouldn't say that, because what the concept of white hole says is just the opposite, just the reverse of black hole. That instead of everything being pulled into the black hole, white hole says that everything will be expelled out of this region and nothing will come inside this region. It's a purely theoretical concept, a hypothetical concept. We have no proof of any white hole existing, and we also say that even from the perspective of physics, it violates second law of thermodynamics. I'm not going there, but it violates second law of thermodynamics. So looks very much impossible, but a theoretical concept where we say that instead of everything being pulled into singularity, everything is being expelled out of this white hole. This is what the concept is. But again, there is nothing to prove this to be correct. LIGO location is in US. Can gravitational wave travel between galaxies? Yes, of course, they can travel all across the universe. That's why we are able to detect gravitational waves which are billions of kilometers away, which are outside the Milky Way galaxy. So yes, they can travel between the galaxies as well. What is wormhole? Okay, so wormhole again is kind of a theoretical concept, imaginary concept, where we are saying that you basically produce a region between two uh, galaxies where you can time travel from one place to another, very small amount of time. So that is called as wormhole, that there is a tunnel that is produced between two different galaxies through which you can travel. So it's more of a science fiction concept than reality. What does T stand for? EHT? EHT is Event Horizon Telescope. Right. So let's move forward. Now, the next topic for us is the sun. And sun perhaps is one of the most important topic, also because of all the things that have been happening. Plus, we are about to launch our own first mission to the sun called as Aditya L1. So because of Aditya L1, also I would say that sun as a topic for your examination becomes very crucial. Now again, when we talk about the sun, we say that sun is a main sequence star. Main sequence star is nothing but an average star. All right. So average stars, they are called as main sequence stars. So we are talking about an average star. Now in this scenario of an average star, what we are saying is that the sun, of course, is at the center of our solar system, and everything else is just surrounding this sun. Correct. So now when it comes to our understanding of the sun, there are few things that we should know. First and foremost, the regions of the sun or the structure of the sun. You have the core of the sun. Core of the sun is where the nuclear reactions are happening. This is where nuclear fusion reactions occur. Okay. So this is where the nuclear fusion reactions occur, leading to the generation of heat and light. Generating heat and light. Generating heat and light. And then after that we have the radiative zone and the convective zone. So radiative zone and the convective zone, these are zones through which all the heat and all the light, all the particles produced at the core, they just keep traveling outward. All right, they keep traveling outward towards the photosphere. Photosphere is the surface, it is the surface of the sun. It is the surface of the sun, And then after that you have chromosphere and corona, which are basically parts of the atmosphere of the sun. Now, when it comes to the sun, all these are the regions of the sun, of course. All the particles and all the plasma and all the energy, etc., they are being produced at the core, correct? And from there on, they start traveling outward. So that's why at the core, the temperature is very, very high. The temperature can be at in the range of even 15 to 20 million degrees Celsius. So high would be the temperature of the core of the sun. And of course, as you come out, the temperature will keep on falling. That, for example, in the radiative and the convective zones, the temperature from 15-20 million degrees Celsius will come down to 1-2 million degrees Celsius. And then after that, by the time you are at the photosphere, the surface of the sun, the temperature falls further, and temperature would be in the range of, let's say, 5500 to 6000 degrees Celsius. That would be the temperature of the surface of the sun. Then you move out of the sun, right, towards the atmosphere. So while you are moving out of the sun, the temperature should drop further, because there is no source of energy or any new particle being created here. So by that logic, we should say that, okay, fine, the temperature should keep on falling further. But that doesn't happen. What we see next is that when you are in chromosphere, the temperature when you are in chromosphere, the temperature can be as high as up to 50,000 degrees Celsius. And in the corona, the temperature can go up to even 1 million degrees Celsius, 10 lakh degrees Celsius. So temperature basically, from very high temperature, first the temperature falls and again the temperature rises. Why does that happen? The good thing is we don't know. We still don't have a concrete evidence to why something like this happens. So good for you for now. But we are trying to find the reason. We are trying to find the reason. For example, there is a Parker Solar Probe that was launched a few years back, and it has gone very near the sun, trying to take all the observations of the sun, trying to understand what the sun is. And similarly, we have our own mission, right? We have our own mission, which is about to be launched very soon, Aditya L1. And Aditya L1, also one of the key objectives of the Aditya L1 mission, is to study the solar atmosphere, understand the problems and the issues that we have seen with the solar atmosphere, the anomalies that we see on the solar atmosphere, what exactly is happening there, why exactly it is happening. To understand all these things, we are also launching our own mission. So maybe we'll get an idea, maybe we'll get an answer. But thankfully for you, as I would say, for now we don't know what the exact reason is. There are a lot of theories behind it, that why this sudden rise in temperature happens again. Now, when we are talking about this, all these regions of the sun, there are a few phenomena which are related to the sun, which also become very crucially important for you. These are the concepts of the sunspot, solar flares, and solar winds. So, what do we mean by a sunspot? What do we mean by a solar flare? And what are solar winds? Now, in this case of a sunspot, let's go one by one. Sunspot, as you can see, it is nothing but a spot, right? These are spots on the surface of the sun. And these spots, these are darker regions that we see on the surface of the sun, which are called as sunspots. Now, these sunspots, what we observe with the sunspots is that they would often be formed in a cyclic manner. Cyclic manner meaning that they follow something called as a solar cycle, an 11-year solar cycle. Meaning that if the sunspots have appeared here today, then 11 years later, at the same place, in the same region, you will see that sunspots will appear again. So it's a cyclic phenomena that follows the solar cycle, and it's nothing but a darker region on the surface of the sun. Darker region, why darker spot? Because the temperature of this region is lesser as compared to all the surrounding areas. Temperature can be in the range of 3500 to, let's say, 4000 degrees Celsius. So all the other parts of the sun, they have the temperature in the range of 5500 to 6000 degrees Celsius. In case of a sunspot, the temperature is in the range of 3500 to 4000 degrees Celsius. So almost 2000 degrees Celsius lesser than the surrounding areas. And that's why sunspot is a darker region. that we see on the surface of the sun. So sunspots. So that's why sunspots, they are dark, cooler areas that appear on the surface of the sun, and they are caused by intense magnetic activity in the photosphere of the sun. Now, then generally what we see is that the temperature of the sunspot will be in the range of 3500 to 4500 degrees Celsius. Now, overall, when it comes to the sunspot, we generally, as I told you, that there is a solar cycle of 11 years, and the sunspots basically they would follow this 11-year solar cycle. What we also see is that sunspots, there is also a kind of a reversal of the poles in the sun as well. This solar cycle is where the north pole becomes the south pole and the south pole becomes the north pole. There is a reversal of poles that happens every 11 years on the sun, and that's why we call it as a solar cycle of 11 years. So that's why we see that overall what happens is that the magnetic winds, these basically will be magnetic particles, magnetic winds that would just jump out of the surface of the sun. And while doing that, they carry a lot of particles, they carry a lot of plasma, etc., that was coming from uh, inside the sun from the core, and it all of a sudden just exits from the surface, leaving behind a darker area, leaving behind kind of a vacuum where you don't have any heat particles, and that's why the temperature is lower. So that is basically what we see with a sunspot. The second concept is of a solar flare. Now, if you see this, this is the solar flare, and if you look at the scale of the Earth, Earth is very, very tiny as compared to a solar flare. Now, what exactly is a solar flare? Solar flare basically is a very extreme, highly energetic, very high temperature, and a large amount of particle, all of a sudden just expelling out of the surface of the sun. All right. So basically, if you see, so these are, you can see in a manner, these are big explosions that happen on the sun's surface, and the big explosions that happen at the sun's surface, and hence after that we see that they would occur sorry they would occur in the outer layer of the sun, the atmosphere of the sun, called as the corona. So from there on, we'll see that huge amount of solar flares will be just released from there. A sudden burst of energy will be released. All right, sudden burst of energy, and that's why we are comparing it to an explosion, that it's a sudden burst of energy, which is just expelling out of the sun. Now, what we see is that a lot of energy is released, a lot of magnetic energy, a lot of electrons, protons, X-rays, etc. All these things will be released by the solar flare. And the same solar flare, then again, they can also lead to a lot of phenomena that we observe on the Earth. So, for example, because understand this, that when it comes to a solar flare, there are magnetic particles involved, there are electrical charges involved, protons, electrons are involved. So anything that is electronic, anything that is magnetic, anything that is electrical can be negatively impacted. Power grids can be impacted, movement of satellites can be impacted, and they would have local weather phenomena as well. For example, they also create beautiful auroras. All right, so you might have heard of this term, aurora borealis. Have you heard of this? Aurora borealis, and there is also aurora australis. Aurora borealis and aurora australis. Heard of these two terms? Some of you are saying yes, others also tell me whether you have heard of it or not. Yeah. What exactly is it? What is aurora borealis? How do you see aurora borealis? I'm sure even if you have not heard the term, you have seen the pictures, I'm sure. Right? So, aurora borealis in the North Pole, in the North Polar region, is a green colored light. You will see that there are these wonderful images, wonderful pictures of green colored light in the atmosphere. So, that green colored light is produced because of interaction between the solar flares and Earth's magnetic field. because Earth has its own magnetic field. So Earth's magnetic field comes in contact with the solar flares, and it produces this kind of a exquisite phenomena. So green colored light at the north poles, and almost pinkish colored light, pink green mixed light in the southern hemisphere, so called as aurora australis. So that's why aurora borealis, understand this, the term aurora borealis. Aurora means what? Any idea what is aurora? What is the dictionary meaning of aurora in English? Yeah, colors, right? So when we say aurora, aurora means what? Aurora means colors in a manner. So, or colored light, anything, correct? So borealis is the second term. What is borealis? Borealis is a word being derived from boreal. You might have, I'm not sure whether you have done the geography classes, but in geography you'll also uh, you'll discuss about various different kinds of vegetation where you have boreal forest near the poles. So boreal forest, boreal is the word used for the Arctic areas. So that's why borealis, because this is a green colored light in the north pole region near the Arctic region. That's why aurora borealis. They could have alternatively called it as colored lights, or green colored lights, or north polar lights, and so on. But then you would have understood this. So scientists would never use terms which common people can understand. So that's why, to make it sound exquisite, aurora borealis. Similarly, aurora australis. Why? Because it is found near Australia, near the south pole. Hence aurora australis. And also, why green color? Next question is, why green color or pink color? What's so different? What's so special with these colors? These colors are mainly produced because of the presence of oxygen and nitrogen. You know about the atmosphere, the composition of the atmosphere: 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. So these gases, they basically, when magnetically, when they interact, they produce green colors or pink color, and that's why so these specific colors are produced. Otherwise any color should have been produced, right? So auroras are formed, uh, satellites can be affected, power outages can happen, even, let's say, even aircraft etc flying, they communication systems can be affected. So all these things can happen when solar flares reach the surface of the earth. Then after that, the third one is a solar wind. All right. So in case of solar wind, what we see is that these are continuous winds of magnetic particles which are released from the sun. So understand the basic difference between solar flares and solar winds. In solar flares, what we are saying is that these are sudden bursts, right? Sudden bursts of energy. Whereas in case of solar wind, these are continuous flow of magnetic particles. So that's the basic difference. That one is a sudden burst and second is a continuous flow. That's the most important difference between solar flares and solar winds. So solar winds, basically they are constant flow of charged particles from the sun. Now, overall, when it comes to the solar winds are emitted from the outermost layer of the sun, that is the corona. Whereas again, although solar flares also move out from the corona, but their origin starts from the surface of the sun. So origin of solar flares start from the surface of the sun, whereas origin of the solar wind starts from the corona, starts from the atmosphere of the sun. So that is also one small difference between the two. But most importantly, it's a constant flow, a continuous flow, whereas in case of a solar flare, it's a sudden burst of energy. It's not continuous in nature. But again, all the particles will also more or less remain the same: protons, electrons, etc. magnetic particles, all these are there. Similarly, here also we'll see that auroras will be formed, satellites will be affected, power lines can be affected, communication systems can be affected. So all these things will happen with solar winds and solar flares in both the cases. Look at this question. Last year they had asked you this question. I'm launching the poll for you. Please mark your answers. All right, so 63% of you have given the correct answer, which is C. Let me just discuss this with you once. If a major solar storm, solar flare reaches the Earth, which of the following are possible effects on the Earth? First is GPS and navigation systems could fail. This is correct, right? Because when it comes to any navigation system, it's a satellite system. GPS is a satellite system. So, as I told you, anything, so just writing it out here, anything electrical, electronic, or magnetic in nature will be affected. Then, second is tsunamis could occur at equatorial regions. Now, tsunamis. First of all, tsunami has an internal reason. Most of the time tsunamis will occur because of some seismic activities, right? Whenever earthquakes happen in the ocean floors, etc., it might lead to tsunamis, or volcanoes can lead to tsunami kind of situation. So that's why seismic reasons, right? Mainly because of seismic reasons. So that's why 2 is wrong. 2 can't be correct. Power grids could be damaged. We just discussed anything electrical, electronic, or magnetic will be damaged. And you will see this news that whenever the geomagnetic storms come, some power outages happen at some part of the world, or especially near the north and the south poles. Intense auroras could occur over much of the earth. This also is correct. Remember, very just a couple of months earlier, there was a news about Ladakh, that for the first time in Ladakh we actually saw auroras. Heard of this news? Have you come across this news? This was in April 2023, just 2 months, 3 months back. So intense auroras could occur over much of the earth is also correct. We saw that in Ladakh it happened, in England it happened. It has never been seen in these kind of areas, but yes, whenever the geomagnetic storms or the solar flares are very strong, they can actually lead to these kind of situations. So this is also correct. Forest fires could take place over much of the planet. Now this is very extreme. Just imagine that you are saying that so much of heat, so much of intensity from the sun, that forest fires have happened. Then why only restrict yourself to only forest fires? All of us will be roasted if this is the kind of situation. So not only forest fires in that case, but remember that these are mostly magnetic particles, right? These are mostly magnetic particles. They have nothing to do with any intense heat formation. Correct? They have nothing to do with any intense heat formation. So it would be wrong to say that forest fires could occur. It is very extreme to say that. Orbits of the satellites could be disturbed. We discussed that satellites will be discussed. Short wave radio communication of the aircraft flying over the polar regions could be interrupted. This is also correct because magnetic north and the magnetic south poles are the most affected areas. So this is also correct. So look at the options: 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7. 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7. So correct answer will be C. So this is how you can derive your answer, because although I mean elimination could have worked, but now we have seen that in the new format of the question paper, the elimination means nothing anymore to UPSC. So that's why now the things how you'll have to manage is a little different as compared to what it used to be. Otherwise, if it was the last year's paper or year before that, I would have simply said that look at stream number 2, you get your answer from stream number 2 itself, right? So this is basically what it is. Next is planets, but let's take a break here. Let's take your lunch break here. It's 1:10 p.m. Can we be back by 2:10 p.m.? Let's be back by 2:10 p.m. Right now, if you have any doubts, if you want to ask anything, let me know. We'll have a discussion and then I'll close the session. What are the driving forces of solar winds and solar flares? So see, in case of solar flares, basically what we will see is we can say in a manner is that it's kind of a reconfiguration that happens in the magnetic arrangement of the sun. Sunspots are also formed from this kind of a same phenomena, and solar flares also, and that's why many a times we see that solar flares and sunspots are often found in the same place, although they are not completely related to one another. But many a times we see that there is a commonality that we have between the occurrence of solar flares and the sunspot. So basically you can say in a manner a reconfiguration that happens in the magnetic configuration of the sun. So that becomes one of the most important ways in which this is seen. And when it comes to solar wind, in case of solar wind, you can say that it is mainly because of very high magnetic activity that happens in the atmosphere of the sun, and that's where the origin is very important. That origin of solar flare is often from the surface, and origin of solar winds is from the corona. All right, so where we see that all of a sudden intensity of the magnetic field in the corona starts to intensify a lot, increase a lot, and causes solar wind. And that's why we see that continuously this is a process that keeps on happening, and it leads to this kind of a situation. Now the situation is more tough. Elimination abolished. Yes, I could say that. We'll have a discussion on 2023 paper also later. So that's why I'm not discussing it right now. Didn't understand the difference in origin between the two. So, meaning what I'm saying is solar flares, they come from the photosphere, the surface of the sun, the yellow colored area that you see, that part. That is where the origin of solar flare is. Solar winds start from the atmosphere. All right. So it goes much beyond the surface. It's not on the surface. So that is why origin. That origin starts from some kind of magnetic anomaly that happens on the surface that will lead to solar flare, and then the intensity buildup that happens in the atmosphere that leads to solar wind. So that is where we were discussing about the difference in the origin. All right, so let's take a break here. We'll be back and we'll start discussing about other celestial bodies.